The unsettling journey continued north, pushing them deeper into a dramatically rugged landscape. The journey north continued, cutting sharply through the sun-drenched waters between towering cliffs. Frustrated after failing to locate the veiled girl, the young master cursed beneath his breath. The biting northern cold was only magnifying his internal struggle, forcing desperate measures. Despite the oppressive cold, the conversation continues indoors while one prepares a drink. The young master's inquiry about the veiled girl was met with a curt realization. The young master's determined search for the veiled girl met only with the frustration of his companions. Her forced smile barely concealed the anxiety building beneath the surface. The young master's aggressive questioning clearly unnerved his attendant. The young master, still reeling from the exchange, forces himself back to the present concern. Despite the other's worries, the muscle-bound man and his companions were clearly enjoying their reckless drinking session. While his comrades worried, Jang Wung embraced his perceived freedom with reckless abandon. The Thunder Dragon Core mocked the young master's fragile state, reveling in their drunken freedom. His manic glee was apparent, even as the other one quietly watched the scenery drift by. If that's spiritual cultivation, then this is complete body transformation, you fool. The youngest member, Jang Wung, continues his peculiar insistence on spiritual cultivation through fishing. He held the cup, his eyes wide as he registered the imposing figure of the young master standing ready on deck. The Thunder Dragon Core disciple demonstrated incredible focus, striking with terrifying, unexpected force. He surveyed the deck, his irritation simmering as he noticed the absence of the veiled girl. With the young master suddenly absent, the Thunder Dragon Core finally decided to train. His stance hardened, the cool, decisive draw of the blade signaling his readiness. The intense practice, an hour in, showcases his unwavering focus amidst the swirling blue energy. He remains utterly focused, maintaining impossible strength even on the rocking deck. But facing that formidable sword just moments ago was a different story entirely. The sheer force of the technique caused his opponent to suddenly collapse. The fierce training abruptly stopped when the formidable opponent suddenly collapsed. The confrontation escalated instantly. A hand shot out, just missing the glint of a blade. The disciplined master executes a powerful, focused downward strike, his resolve momentarily breaking through the gloom. The practitioner lands a sharp blow, eliciting a grunt of pain from the other figure. The immediate, shocking defense met the swift attack with a sharp, frustrated sound. The young master stands firm, his gaze unwavering as the Thunder Dragon strike meets an unseen force. The Thunder Dragon Core reacts instantly, preparing to meet the challenge with their usual rigorous training methods. He executed the required stance, unleashing a powerful, focused strike. The impact of the technique shattered the space, forcing the swordsman to grunt in pain. The young master's casual inquiry about the veiled girl was met with immediate denial from the guards. The intense martial arts move, Thunder Dragon 10 Strikes, reached its devastating climax. The foe unleashed a terrifying roar, attacking with chilling, focused speed. With a sudden surge of power, he unleashed the formidable Thunder Dragon 10 Strikes. That formidable sword technique, the Thunder Dragon 10 Strikes, was executed with shocking finality. The disciple collapsed mid-strike, the overwhelming force of his exertion finally yielding. The devastating move concludes, sending shockwaves of power as the intended target barely manages to brace himself. The young master's annoyance quickly morphs into a sharp, cold focus. The previous struggle has culminated in a decisive, explosive movement. One step. The sheer force of his technique has paid off, eliciting a triumphant, if exhausted, affirmation. The resulting power surge from the Thunder Dragon 10 Strikes leaves the subordinate stunned by its sheer force. The Thunder Dragon 10 Strikes connected, an intense burst of energy accompanying the downward slash. The man's desperate search for the veiled girl yields only a visceral, agonizing shriek of failure. A sharp, sudden sound echoes through the sudden silence, signaling an abrupt halt. The young master's dismissive touch only intensified the subordinate's desperate plea for attention. The muscular man looms over the collapsed disciple, his victory absolute but his expression grim. The annoyed subordinate snaps at the realization that the veiled young lady is absent. The worried subordinate watched as the overly enthusiastic retainer offered a drink, clearly indulging himself. The rowdy disciples, emboldened by their recent freedom, indulged in open revelry. The intensity of his sudden, unexpected strike was met with utter shock. His manic grin intensified. They were finally going to train. The exertion was too much. The man collapsed, hacking violently. His condescending smirk confirms his true intention, maintaining their usual, self-serving routine. The manic energy of the moment erupts as he points sharply, demanding action. The young master's casual behavior suddenly jolted this attendant into stunned silence. He insists he hasn't forgotten the looming challenge, a smirk playing on his lips despite the harsh journey. Hearing his master's casual dismissal, the warrior bolted up, declaring his intent to leave. The young master recoils, just as something massive erupts from the water beside the ship. The young master reappeared, drawing immediate, wary attention from his subordinates. A familiar smirk played across his face as the threat of rescue was dismissed. The Thunder Dragon Corps, seeing an opening, immediately leaped from the deck in a sudden, chaotic exit. The disciple triumphantly presents his impressive catch, splashing water onto the young master. The fisherman proudly displays his catch, oblivious to the bizarre sight unfolding in the water. The young master delivered a swift, unexpected blow, sending one of his men flying. The ship plows through the unnaturally colored waters, the sound echoing the urgency of their northern journey. As they traveled north toward Hebe, the scenery shifted from the sea to imposing, jagged peaks against the fading sunset. They returned to their usual banter, pointing out landmarks while the other looked on, perhaps concerned. The young master's query cuts through the air, demanding the location of the veiled girl. Their casual laughter confirmed their utter lack of concern for the young master's discomfort. The dazzling, fiery sunset illuminated the churning water as they watched from the deck. Despite the terrifying current, the men are forced to struggle onward, gasping against the punishing flow. Despite the commotion from the falling figures, the ship plows on, heading toward the ominous orange glow of the horizon. Under the cold night sky, surrounded by imposing mountains, the young master sat alone, deep in meditation. As the young master sipped his drink, a wave of self-satisfaction washed over him. The desperate cries for help echo as the figures flail in the murky, swirling waters below the stern of the ship. The young master remained silent, absorbing the attendant's firm warning about the Sword's Palace members. The young master finally realizes the severity of the situation after his relentless search. His harsh words about compassion hung in the air, causing her to look up, shocked by the callousness. Despite the commotion, the young master's sudden, sharp reaction was followed by a desperate sneeze. The young master's intense scrutiny sent a jolt of terror through the subordinate. Frustrated by the lack of the veiled girl, the young master unleashes his anger on his attendant. The young master retreated, leaving her distraught as she frantically checked her appearance in the small mirror. The young master's skeptical look confirms his confusion at their sudden, bizarre behavior. The veiled figure approached, their silence demanding attention from the young master. The young master recognizes the distinct sword hilt, murmuring the name with surprise. The young master faces the mysterious veiled figure, a confrontation looming as his immediate concerns about the Sword Palace linger. The mention of the sovereign clearly startled this masked figure. The young master's sudden reluctance to seek out the veiled girl stunned his guards into horrified silence. He recoiled from the sudden, close confrontation, his expression a mask of panicked denial. Despite the young master's hasty exit, his attendant bowed deeply, acknowledging the command. He bolted from the room, their earlier goal suddenly forgotten in the face of a new objective. The young master processed the crew's sudden, panicked suggestion to save the drowning people. The young master's sudden inquiry reveals a tense meeting with the elegantly dressed attendant. His casual inquiry quickly turned to shock upon hearing the answer. They were demanding to see the girl with the veil, but were told she wasn't there. The young master shivered visibly, despite his composed appearance, while the girl watched him with obvious concern. The young master recoiled, clearly frustrated by the endless barrage of persistent duel requests. The guards were acting strangely, but now the young master suddenly erupted with intense emotion. Under the cold, pale light of the full moon, the massive ship cut silently through the dark waters. The cold, worsening with their journey north, forces the young master to huddle close to a small fire for warmth. The young master's search for the veiled girl was met with immediate denial. The young master chewed something while his attendant offered a gentle smile, clearly enjoying the mundane moment. Their massacre left a trail of silence, broken only by the victor's chilling presence. The young master's men, energized by the realization that their preferred companions are absent, immediately dive into vigorous training. The formidable sword technique erupted, a sharp blue arc slicing through the air. The mysterious, veiled figure stands silently, observing the chaos from above. The young master's guarded expression reveals a flash of recognition, perhaps confirmation, as he utters a single word. The Thunder Dragon Core heavy-handed sparring immediately followed the master's sudden collapse. The devastating Thunder Dragon 10 strikes unleashes a blinding barrage of purple energy. The sheer, blinding force of the Thunder Dragon 10 strikes detonated outward. The young master's blunt inquiry stopped the girl's casual chatter short. The young master stepped onto the deck, a silent, imposing figure shrouded by the wide hat. The young master appears, towering over the gathered Thunder Dragon Corps members. The older man's exaggerated glee contrasted sharply with the younger's cautious expression. Against the cold northern air, his refusal to engage was absolute. The attendant gasped, likely reacting to the master's sudden demand to find the veiled girl. The young master's focus snaps back, muttering a single, heavy word to himself. Despite the growing cold, the youngest one embraces the momentary warmth by the fire, while the eldest maintains a wary distance. The Thunder Dragon Corps members, finally finding a moment of peace, eagerly scan the deck for the veiled girl. His carefree laughter echoed the crew's forced denial of the impending doom. He spoke with a hardened look, readying himself for the coming confrontation. The overly enthusiastic men were quickly interrupted by the young master's sudden query, a frantic grabbing, confirming the tension among the Thunder Dragon Corps soldiers. The young master's entourage finally burst into the room, eager to report. He thought they finally agreed to train, but they vanished like smoke. The relief from the previous confrontation fades as he shifts uncomfortably, the lingering tension still visible. The search for the veiled girl suddenly halts as he realizes she isn't where he expected. The veiled figure, sensing the surrounding shift, paused their approach. A shadowed figure, partially obscured by a wide hat, watched the strange scene unfold. The sheer audacity of their demand caused a visible tremor of shock. The second young master, Namgung Hyuk, subtly signals his presence behind the shadowed figure. Beneath the dark straw hat, piercing eyes peer out, ready for whatever confrontation comes next. The boat surged forward, cutting aggressively through the churning, murky water under the dark night sky. Hyuk's casual dismissal only fueled the elder's suspicion of his brother's intentions. The brigands exchanged sly, triumphant looks, pleased with their easy target. The henchman grinned, eager to comply with their young master's surprising concession. The pressure was mounting, his jaw clenched tight as the humiliation burned. The young master remained outwardly calm, yet his clenched fist betrayed his true internal frustration. The anticipation was thick, punctuated by the sharp shing of drawn steel. The mysterious Sword Palace envoy stepped forward, drawing a blade that shimmered with otherworldly light. His quick, panicked internal retort confirmed his rising apprehension. With the sparring match engaged, the mysterious swordswoman charges forward with fierce determination. The tension breaks as the master merely nods, allowing the extortion to proceed. Much to his followers' shock, the young master's plan to delegate the hassle backfired. His shock and dismay were palpable. Despite his earlier boast, the fight was clearly taking its toll, leaving him violently coughing up blood. The bandit leader's sudden, shocking command left his crew baffled, yet obedience was absolute. The young master, having just permitted the extortion, showed a chilling resolve beneath his slight injury. The first young master, ready for confrontation, faced the wounded onlooker as the pressure mounted. The brief satisfaction of dispatching his annoyance was immediately undercut by a fresh wave of trouble. The sudden request for passage fees left the young master stunned and utterly bewildered. The younger brother beamed, already plotting to offload the trouble onto the elder. The bloodied subordinate stared in disbelief as his master signaled compliance. The second young master, with a feral grin, lunged forward, startling his companions with his sudden, aggressive stance. The lackeys cheered the young master's surprising generosity, while the stoic escort remained unimpressed by the petty extortion. The younger brother's audacity to push all the trouble onto his elder sibling left the attendant speechless. The petty extortion underway was abruptly interrupted by an unexpected sneeze. The clash of martial arts was swift, a blur of motion as Namgung Hyuk countered the attack. He pulls his sword slightly, readying himself for the inevitable confrontation, concluding his momentary deliberation. The sound of the approaching bandits intensified, causing a cold dread to creep over him despite the surrounding heat. The young master's hand tightens around the hilt, the tension in the air palpable as he prepares for what comes next. The anticipated duel with 50 High Yeon was abruptly interrupted, and now Hyuk unleashes a swift, blinding strike. The fight ignited instantly. Hyuk's 100 battle sparring forced the opponent onto the defensive. The fierce sparring match erupted in a blinding flash of speed and impact. The ships collided with a sickening, splintering sound as the turbulent current intensified. While Namgung Hyuk preoccupied the Sword Palace disciple, his older brother remained silently unimpressed by the feigned weakness. The battle erupted on the deck, the air filled with the sharp sound of clashing steel. The current has gotten stronger, forcing the imposing ship forward through the murky waters. The young master remained impassive as his companion looked on, bewildered by his sudden decision. The young master listened, an almost imperceptible sound escaping as he processed the audacity of their demands. 5 ships total, 1 large one, 4 smaller ones approach. Her surprise was evident. Even the young master conceded to paying the demanded toll. Amidst the fog, the young master warmed his hands by the brazier, contemplating the next move. The young master's grudging acceptance was met with immediate, eager compliance from his retainers. The turbulent, brown waters churned violently beneath the heavy merchant vessels. The helmsman fought the wheel, surprised by the sheer force required to steer against the encroaching current. The sudden convergence of ships caused a heavy, jarring impact as they navigated the choppy waters. Despite the young master's surprisingly lax orders, his guards reacted instantly, their confusion turning to panicked obedience. The tension mounts as the bandit leader steps forward, swords crossed, ready for confrontation. The ominous sound of approaching vessels shattered the river's calm. The scarred, one-eyed bandit looms over them, his rough voice announcing their territory's brutal law. The Dongping gang thugs swarmed forward, brandishing their anchors and laughing maniacally, preparing their ambush. The bandits enthusiastically heaved the grappling hooks across the turbulent waters. The demand was simple: surrender silver or face swift violence. The fight exploded into brutal motion as the bandits met their first resistance. Her initial alarm quickly shifts as the bandits press their aggressive advance. The bandits, armed and ready, took their aggressive stance, clearly intending bloodshed. The bandits, recognizing their prey, quickly gathered their forces for the expected confrontation. The ruffians boarded, their scarred leader promising safety if the guests simply complied. The young master's decision stunned his entourage. They expected a fight, not compliance. The young master's unsettling stillness only fueled the crew's confusion over his surprising instruction. The crew watched in shock as the young master actually agreed to pay the toll. The imposing, one-eyed leader steps forward, clutching his staff, letting out a chilling, triumphant laugh. The supposed Dragon King's subjects, clearly bandits, assert their territory with savage glee. The one-eyed dragon slams his spear down, instantly asserting his brutal authority on the deck. The bandits, shocked by the sudden, bizarre compliance, paused their aggressive posturing. The sudden, unexpected demand for payment made everyone pause inside the dim cabin. The bandit leader roared, completely enraged by the young master's dismissive command. The subordinates were stunned into silence by the young master's unexpected command to pay. The bandit leader, One-Eyed Dragon, rallies his men, their rough advance signaling immediate danger. The bandit leader, One-Eyed Dragon, stared down the merchant, demanding answers for this unexpected intervention. The bandit leader's realization snaps into focus. They were too slow. The leader of the bandits glowers, his shock quickly turning to aggressive confrontation. The bandit leader, taken aback by the young master's unexpected compliance, muttered his realization. The aggressive leader faces the scowling young master, a tense standoff erupting immediately. The usually stingy young master unexpectedly concedes, baffling his attendants. The initial confrontation erupted into a brutal, bloody flurry of steel and rage. The scarred man looked on, his expression hardening as his companion pondered their next move. His hesitation over their sudden compliance vanished, replaced by stark, coiled suspicion. The bandit leader, One-Eyed Dragon, sneered confidently, believing his claim to the Dragon King's favor would grant him immunity. The master of the house remained composed, tending to the brazier as the entourage waited nearby. The bandit leader, One-Eyed Dragon, grimaced, taken aback by the unexpected compliance. The hulking bandit looms, demanding an answer while the protagonist's shadow fills the foreground. The bandit leader's frustration boiled over, realizing his men were now tasked with collecting fees instead of outright looting. The young master's surprising decision left his followers utterly confused and skeptical. The retainer was utterly bewildered by the young master's sudden, soft command. The bandit leader's unexpected softness confused his subordinate, who expected immediate violence. He subtly shook his head, the fire crackling nearby as he considered his next move against these nuisances. The Dongping gang leader blinked, bewildered by the sudden, meek compliance. They were expecting a fight, not easy money. The true depth of his surprising concession left the hidden observer speechless, processing the implications of paying the toll. The stoic warrior drew his blade, his companions tense as an unseen threat registered. That stingy miser told us to give them money. Utter disbelief contorted his face. The bandits, now facing the intimidating sword of the young hero, froze in apprehension. The intense, silent appraisal continued, a veiled gaze locking onto the chaos. The masked enforcer draws his blade, the quiet scrape signaling a readiness for violence. The younger brother could only stare in shocked disbelief as the fight raged on. The young master's arrogant posture meets the mysterious figure's guarded readiness. The bandit's shock registers as the young master challenges their authority. The elder brother, sweating under the pressure, urgently tried to stop the escalation. The great hero Namgung, unnerved by the unexpected development, could only grimace as the battle intensified. Even after showcasing his technique, Namgung was left clutching his head in frustration. The bandit scoffed at the suggestion of bribery, focused instead on maintaining their authority. The brute lord pressed his blade close, his face a mask of brutal impatience and disdain for the pleading villagers. The crude blade descends, threatening to crush the family they desperately offered up. The bandit leader roared, cornering the young hero in a brutal display of force. The great hero Namgung was instantly dismissed by a brutal kick, proving his intervention was insufficient. The masked figure drew their weapon, a soft shing preceding the inevitable clash of steel. The enraged bandit, seeing his victim's defiance, raises his blade for a decisive strike. The bandit leader sneers, his confidence peaking as he prepares his strike. The heavy blow landed, shaking the very ground beneath them with devastating impact. The bandit leader finally realized the terrifying speed of the masked expert closing in. The master's blade meets its target, shattering the bandit's arrogant defense in a spray of blood. The elder's sword strike landed with brutal efficiency, eliciting a raw, agonizing scream as blood erupted. The aggressive bandits surged forward, their crude weapons raised against the unexpected interference. The shadowy figure unleashed a blur of motion, the sword singing with deadly intent. The sudden intervention resulted in a brutal counter-strike, ending the aggressor's reign with a sickening thud. Even the so-called great hero Namgung was utterly defeated by the master's effortless counter. The silent warrior, now revealed, meets the desperate bandit's drawn steel head-on. The stunned subordinate began to stammer out his counsel, his face a mask of pure shock. The bandit leader, enraged by the young hero's defiance, unleashes a powerful, sweeping blow. The clash of steel reverberated, a sharp impact forcing a pained grunt from the masked figure. The bandit leader charged forward, wielding his staff with brutal force against the young hero. The masked bandit struggled under the precise, blinding flurry of strikes, a pained grunt escaping his lips. Even a mere water bandit's skills are proving unexpectedly advanced. Even after showcasing incredible skill, the self-proclaimed hero remains utterly unimpressed. Sigh. This situation is proving tiresome. The opponent lets out a cry as the blow lands, just as the young hero prepares his next move. The force of the impact was tremendous, eliciting a sharp grunt of pain even from this unexpected expert. The eye-patch-wearing brute roared, his weapon raised, furious that his authority was challenged. The bandit leader struggled internally, his victory evaporating before his eyes. The bandit leader roared, enraged that his minions were now clashing with a righteous factions group. The bandit sneered, his laughter echoing as he pointed his weapon at the veiled figure. The gang members stared, aghast, as the supposed ally stood ready to draw steel against them. His desperate attempt to land a blow failed as the technique was instantly neutralized. The bandit leader met the sudden, blinding clash of steel head-on. Even the supposed great hero, Namgung, faltered, his opponent utterly unfazed by the sudden display of force. The clash was brutal, the Namgung descendant meeting the bandit leader's fury head-on. The bandit stared, utterly stunned by the effortless display of true mastery. These thugs suddenly turned on each other, confusing the young hero. The companions watched in stunned silence as the fight erupted around them. His shock turns to grim realization as he watches the real fight unfold. The clash erupted instantly. The bandit recoiled from the swift, brutal strike, faced with the unexpected strength of their opponents. The bandit leader roared for total annihilation. The initial shock gave way to brutal aggression as the bandit surged forward, intent on slaughter. Despite his superior power, even the great hero felt the sting of defeat. The brute charged with a furious, low strike, intent on overpowering the young master. The desperate bandit finally met a brutally decisive counterattack, his resistance ending in a sickening crunch. The bandits cheered, ready to overwhelm the opposition with sheer numbers. A single, blinding strike from the unseen expert cuts through the bandits' ranks. The clash was immediate and brutal, a desperate impact that jolted the seasoned fighter. The bandits' plea for shared business turns instantly to rage as Namgung is clearly not one of them. The brute from the Yangtze River bandits made his move, brutally dispatching an opponent in a spray of blood. The great hero's attack landed with devastating force, a clean, bloody strike. The gang member roared in disbelief as their own allies turned against them. Ignoring Namgung's intervention, the bandit leader unleashes a furious, desperate strike. The masked expert met the elder's wild assault head-on with a resounding clash. The bandit, stunned by the sudden clash, remained locked in a stalemate against the powerful young master. The bandit leader launches himself, spear raised high, aiming for a decisive blow. The masked figure registers the unexpected, overwhelming surge of power directed at him. The powerful azure sky boundless sword technique met its target, producing a deafening clash. The enemy, overwhelmed by the Namgung family's display, struggles to maintain his footing amidst the rising tension. The bandit leader roared, gripping his staff tight as his energy surged against the young hero's attack. The mysterious swordsman stands ready, blocking the charge of the overly confident young master. The young swordswoman quietly observed the chaotic scene unfolding before her, hand covering her mouth in shock. The young master's previous efforts seemed to be in vain as his companions were already moving on. The leader of the bandits roared, enraged by the sudden intervention and the Namgung clan's defiance. The massive force slams down, eliciting a sharp cry of impact from the airborne opponent. He channels his inner focus, the light of his twin blades forming a protective, glowing arc around him. The powerful downward strike met the defensive swords with blinding, concentrated energy. The older master unleashes his powerful Azure Sky Boundless Sword technique, charging his weapon with palpable energy. The brigand leader recoiled in shock as his powerful Azure Sky Boundless Sword technique met an immovable defense. The bandit leader recoils, mystified as the sword's energy seems to pull him in. The sheer power of the strike sent dust and debris flying outwards. The elders attack, utilizing the Azure Sky Boundless Sword technique, slammed down, meeting immovable force. The Azure Sky Boundless Sword technique met absolute resistance, the sheer force shattering the illusion. The bandit leader, already wounded, is thrown backward by the sheer force of the attack. The seemingly unstoppable bandit leader recoiled, blood splattering violently from a direct hit. The final strike landed, sending the bandit crashing down in a spray of blood. The mysterious swordsman now stands over the defeated bandit leader, their silence echoing the finality of the blow. The young master, having made his move against the bandits, now draws his own blade in the tense, dark night. Despite the previous display of power, this seemingly minor character still possessed an arrogant confidence. The display of overwhelming skill by the great hero Namgung left the elder brother stunned, his confidence visibly shaken. The sudden, imposing presence of the young hero silenced the already tense confrontation. The immediate danger had passed, and the crowd erupted in relief and cheers. The imposing shadow of the bandit leader's massive vessel loomed over the stunned crowd. The eldest young master's powerful strike was countered instantly, his momentum swallowed by the deluge. With a final, earth-shaking roar, the great beast materialized, utterly overwhelming the air itself. As the Namgung heirs were utterly defeated, an unexpected, terrifying arrival cut through the chaos. Silence hung heavy as the Namgung heir processed the utter collapse of his bravado. The challenger's final, arrogant attack was met with overwhelming, crushing force. The arrogant gang leader slammed his immense force through their meager defense, stunning the onlookers. The arrogant bandit leader charged forward, unleashing a terrifying, overwhelming force. The lingering, noxious gas forces even the onlookers to gag and choke. The Yangtze Iron Dragon bulldozed through the wooden structure with terrifying force. A sudden realization struck them as the fight concluded. The powerful figure of the Yangtze Iron Dragon advances, stepping through the dust and smoke of the confrontation. Jianjin Gung glowered, his intimidating presence radiating raw, simmering anger. The monstrous power of the Namgung heir had instantly silenced the gang leader's arrogance. The arrogant leader of the Yangtze Iron Dragon dismisses the Namgung heir with utter contempt. The intimidating leader of the Dongping gang finally steps forward, radiating arrogance. The gang leader's sheer presence caused the onlookers to recoil in shock. The arrogant gang leader quickly silenced the woman who dared defy him. The eldest young master's defeat was sudden and absolute, leaving his attendants shocked. The arrogant leader pressed his advantage, his imposing presence demanding a response. The Yangtze Iron Dragon recoiled in shock as the mysterious swordsman asserted his dominance. The Dongping gang leader regarded the defeated Namgung siblings with a confident, mocking smile. He grins, stepping back as if handing the reins to his elder brother. The defeated young master side watched in stunned silence as Qianjin Gung casually addressed them. The seasoned gangster closes the distance, his hand clenching as he prepares to strike the arrogant youth. The formidable leader of the Yangtze Iron Dragon, Qianjin Gung, steps forward, ready to silence the insolence. Despite the overwhelming display of power, the true threat remained poised and watchful beside the victor. The furious gang leader seemed confident that the Namgung brothers, even working together, were still no match for him. The bandit leader, Qianjin Gung, laughs, impressed by the Namgung siblings' audacity. The arrogant gang leader unleashed a terrifying, glowing strike, his confidence absolute. The opponent, emboldened by his apparent dominance, unleashes a raw, furious strike. The sudden interruption from the Yangtze Iron Dragon drew a sharp, interested reaction. Despite the earlier boast, the eldest young master's combined attack was utterly crushed. The gang leader's shocking electrical strike slammed forward, catching the Namgung heir off guard. The gang leader unleashes a potent sword strike, the Emperor's sword form, descending upon his opponent. The smug gang leader seemed utterly unfazed as the overwhelming power struck overhead. The young master unleashed his counter, focusing all his might into the potent imperial sword form. The Namgung heir, fueled by arrogance, unleashes his strike, met only by stunned silence. As the brute charged with dark energy, the Namgung heir braced for the inevitable collision. The Yangtze Iron Dragon presses his advantage, descending with a torrent of blinding, glowing strikes. The villain unleashes his ultimate technique, the blinding meteor 12 swords. The brute's flurry of purple energy beams slammed into the young master, deflecting his attack with jarring impacts. As the gang leader's arrogance swelled, an unexpected figure finally revealed themselves. The brute attacks, and a single word screams the recipient's shock: the armor. The brute mocked their defense, clearly relishing his superior strength against the flailing Namgung heir. The elder young master was thrown back violently by the unseen force, his screams swallowed by the impact. The Namgung eldest son finally draws his blade, his expression grim as he charges forward. Jian Jingung unleashes his oppressive power, asserting his dominance over the Namgung heir. Despite his formidable stance, the sheer barrage forced a pained grunt from the Namgung heir. The Dragon King strikes with brutal, overwhelming force, effortlessly overpowering the Namgung heir. The Iron Dragon's overwhelming force connected, slamming the Namgung heir into the ground with a painful grunt. The brute, Qian Jingung, casually pops a snack, unimpressed by the chaos he has caused. The arrogant gang leader, Qian Jingung, dramatically draws his blade, ready to face the Namgung heir. Qian Jingung mocks the Namgung heir's utter failure, dripping with contempt. The younger disciple gaped, seeing the eldest Namgung master utterly crushed. The Namgung heir was instantly overwhelmed, his desperate counter utterly shattered by the immense power unleashed. The esteemed Namgung heir met the brute force of the Yangtze Iron Dragon with a fierce, charged strike. The triumphant gang leader swiftly cut down his opponent, proclaiming, "That's enough." The supposed weakness he was exploiting had just been shattered by a devastating counterattack. The newcomer, however, dismisses their prior displays of power with a sharp, focused intake of breath. The arrogant gang leader recoiled as the Namgung heir delivered a punishing, unexpected blow. The swift, overwhelming force slammed the opponent into the ground. The gang leader's grand entrance ended abruptly, reduced to a gasping mess from the overwhelming counterattack. The arrogant leader, having crushed the Namgung heir, now faces an unexpected challenge. The brute mockingly threw down the pitiful bounty, anticipating the Namgung heir's humiliation. Qian Jingung steamed with rage, his arrogance meeting an unexpected counter. The words of the antagonist hang in the air, revealing the full extent of his terrifying power. The intimidating gang leader let out a fierce, strained breath, sensing the tide was finally turning against him. The triumphant gang leader loomed over the defeated Namgung youth, savoring his victory. His bravado shattered, the gang leader stared in disbelief at the unexpected overwhelming power. The bandit leader unleashed his power, a stark contrast to the sudden silence that followed the Namgung heir's swift defeat. The Iron Dragon's monstrous power erupts, completely overpowering the Namgung heir's desperate defense. Even his casual strike, powered by raw force, overwhelmed the combined efforts of the Namgung siblings. He unleashes his fury, shattering the brute's momentary advantage with explosive force. The unstoppable force slammed forward, eliciting a horrified denial from the bandit leader. The arrogant bandit leader was instantly silenced by a devastating blow. The gang leader was effortlessly thrown back, leaving the onlookers staggered by this sudden, overwhelming power. The heavy impact lands, rattling the very structure of the ship as the defeated foe lets out a sharp gasp. The mighty armor could not withstand the final blow, leaving the attacker reeling in agony. The invincible warrior, bloodied and defeated by the mysterious sword technique, struggles to comprehend his failure. The enraged warrior surged forward, unleashing his frustrated might against the seemingly defenseless target. The shock of the impact registers as the attackers surge forward, their movements blurring with violent intent. The victor, supremely confident, begins to state his terms, dismissing the opponent's supposed misery. The sheer absurdity of being overpowered by a simple blow left him stunned and bleeding. The opponent's composure shattered as the unexpected, precise touch landed squarely on his forehead. The baffled aggressor could only stare as the youth stood poised, revealing his incomprehensible knowledge of every move. The devastating impact sent shockwaves through his body, eliciting a final, agonizing roar of defeat. The devastating impact shattered his defenses, confirming the arrogance of his armor. The relentless three thunder sword technique struck home, shattering defenses and eliciting a raw cry of agony. The devastating three thunder sword technique connects with brutal force. The armor's supposed invincibility shattered under the relentless assault of the three thunder sword technique. The devastating blow of the three thunder sword technique slams home, eliciting a sharp cry of pain. The heavy impact resonated as his body slammed violently against the deck. The young master's pride shattered as he realized the true extent of his defeat, his body trembling violently. Despite the defeat, the arrogant man scoffed, believing his armor made him untouchable. The impact sends the armored foe plummeting, gravity assisting the stunning defeat. The armored brute charged, intent on turning his foe to dust with raw aggression. Seeing his invincible armor shattered, the smug look on his face only fuels my rising power. The three thunder sword technique lands, shattering his meager defense as the armored man cries out in pain. The once invincible warrior, overheated and sputtering smoke, could only stare in disbelief. The armored brute charged forward, convinced his defenses made him untouchable. The subordinate immediately complies, recognizing the shift in authority. The three thunder sword technique was revealed to be deceptively simple, lacking finesse but carrying devastating force. The three thunder sword technique followed, appearing less like a refined sword move and more like a brutal, decisive beating. The armor meant to grant invincibility was useless against the sheer force of the three thunder sword technique. The powerful three thunder sword technique smashed down, instantly shattering the dragon scale armor. His manic grin split his bloodied face as he declared the fight far from over. The sheer shock of that final blow registered across his features, a silent testament to absolute defeat. The supposedly unbreakable dragon scale armor shatters instantly under the relentless barrage. The dragon scale armor, supposedly impenetrable, was clearly no match for this relentless assault. The defeated warrior thrashed, consumed by the realization of his crushing defeat. His wild, manic laughter erupted as the deal was struck, the threat of ruin suddenly replaced by absurd servitude. The terrifying force of the three thunder sword technique shatters the armor, leaving the opponent reeling and coughing blood. The sudden sounds of conflict faded as the reality of the situation dawned on the observers. Despite the victory, the victor wore a terrifying, maniacal grin, realizing the true cost of the fight. The defeated swordsman trembles, utterly helpless before the young master's overwhelming power. The armored brute roared in disbelief and agony after his invincible defense was utterly shattered. The victor, fully charged with dark energy, flashed a triumphant, knowing smirk at his defeated foe. Even against a devastating counter, the enraged opponent channeled his remaining fury into one final strike. His rage boiled over, an uncontrollable tremor coursing through his defeated body. The sheer humiliation of being overpowered by such a novice technique nearly broke him. The devastating three thunder sword technique delivered its final, crushing blow, silencing the opponent's dying screams. Sighing at the persistent arrogance, they recognized the headache these sword palace brats were causing. The young master, now utterly spent, recoils as his opponent makes a final, casual gesture. The defeated young master could only stare in shock as the masked figure appeared. The defeated young master choked on his pride, while his subordinate watched with barely concealed judgment. The young master winced, forced to accept the humiliating terms dictated by the seemingly merciful negotiator. The victor steps forward, presenting a gesture of calm authority amidst the chaos. The mysterious figure watches silently as the beaten opponent finally manages a guttural exclamation of pain. The defeated noble, reeling from his humiliating defeat, is suddenly challenged to a duel. The victor stood silently, observing the defeated young master's shock. The Namgung's arrogance was met only with a cold, discerning stare from the mysterious figure. The defeated men erupted in fury over the blatant disrespect shown by their opponent. The stunned young master demanded an audience with the true heir, but the opponent's strength had already been fully spent. The defeated noble, desperate to save face, implores a duel with the true heir. Even as his armor was shredded, the infuriated master launched himself down, sword halfway drawn. He winced, already mentally calculating the immense cost of their foolish brawl. The shock of the previous encounter still registered, but now a new negotiation was being forced upon them. The audacity of demanding more money for a simple transaction stunned her into silence. The victorious foe surveyed his trembling underlings, forcing their submission with an intimidating display of power. They were ready to abandon the damaged ship, but the young master was thinking of a new, outrageous scheme. The defeated young master splutters while the mysterious figure calmly considers their next demand. The Namgung heir, having settled the immediate conflict, turned his back, walking away from the defeated brawler. The merciful young master laid out his audacious demand: row the dragon ship to Beijing within 3 days. The defeated nobleman stammers, his bravado completely gone in the face of such audacious demands. The defeated warriors were forced to raise their hands and surrender under the smirking victor's gaze. The victor ascended the stairs, leaving the defeated and stunned onlookers below. The young master, having averted disaster, now presents his demands with an unsettling calm. The defeated swordsman's allies roared, perhaps in protest, perhaps in renewed fury, as their apparent leader stood tall. The victor aggressively presses the coin into the hand of the defeated man, claiming his prize. The victor, feeling utterly merciful, offered a deal far beyond simple compensation. The defeated young master could only stare in shock as his bravado crumbled. The triumphant young master looms, ready to dictate the terms of their forced servitude. His sinister grin and knowing crouch unnerved the stunned official. Merciful young master, they mocked, playing along with his absurd demands. Overwhelmed with relief and gratitude, the formerly victimized group expressed their thanks profusely. The apparent victim, now surprisingly composed, offers a wry, self-satisfied smile. The emissaries finally stood before the magnificent Hebe Ping family estate, a complex of towering pagodas. The dazzling structure confirms their arrival. They have finally reached the Hebe Ping family estate. The delegation finally arrives at the gates, the horses thundering down the path. The immediate drama of the duel request finally gave way to a brief, uneasy respite inside the mansion. The elder servant recoiled, face tightening as the messenger's news broke the brief calm. The sheer audacity of the Ping family's disrespect finally broke her composure. The attendant gasped, recoiling as the other grabbed her, clearly terrified by the sudden confrontation. His fury, held back by caution, was finally about to boil over. A sudden, blinding rush of speed descends, shocking the onlooker into a single exclamation. Suddenly, a figure arrives with startling speed, their presence immediately felt. The messenger's shocking announcement hung in the air, leaving this attendant utterly bewildered. The grand entrance to the Ping family's stronghold loomed, its scale eliciting awe from the arriving envoys. But despite his inner turmoil, Namgung Hyuk remained strangely silent, his gaze intensely focused. The brother struggled with his mounting frustration as the young master remained unnervingly calm. He sneered, his expression hardening with dark intent. The Sword Palace representative was clearly intent on making a bold opening statement. He quickly covered his intentions, letting out a deceptive, delighted laugh. The powerful arrival of Hai Yan caused an abrupt shockwave, interrupting the standoff. Despite the humiliating wait, Hyuk remained unnervingly calm, a silent promise of retribution. His composure finally breaking, he could no longer mask his shock at this unbelievable turn of events. Just as one subordinate recoiled from the cold, his comrade was suddenly snatched back. Despite his attendants' confusion, Namgung Hyuk remained composed, carrying the bundled companion with startling ease. Despite the humiliation, the young master's surprising calm baffled his followers. The stunned retainer can only stammer the beginning of his thought as the young master remains unsettlingly quiet. The Sword Palace representative appeared, silencing the entourage, leaving the nervous followers speechless. Even as they were forcibly bundled away, the envoys watched the young master being carried off. The Namgung delegation finally reaches the imposing gates of the Ping family estate, only to be halted immediately. The Ping family head steps forward, the situation now completely under his control. The woman coldly presented the Namgung family token, while her sweating companion looked on nervously. The Ping family's dismissive attitude clearly rattled the delegation, even amidst the tension. The guard, realizing who stood before him, reacted with stunned disbelief while holding up the verification tablet. The anger simmered, threatening to boil over despite the earlier restraint. Stunned by the sheer audacity of the Ping family, the young master pauses, his composure momentarily broken. The intimidating gaze of the young master met the silent, shadowed figure of the Sword Palace envoy. The head Ping seemed genuinely ready to extend customary greetings, much to his son's visible irritation. The masked envoy from the Sword Palace presented their official token, demanding attention. The Ping family retainers reacted with disbelief to the Sword Palace's sudden arrival. Despite the insult, Hyuk remained unnervingly silent, a calm that unnerved his entourage. The Ping guards stared down the delegation, their arrogance evident even as the Namgung envoys fumed. The Sword Palace's importance forces the Ping retainers to quickly reconsider their dismissal. The young master remains uncharacteristically silent, his expression tight, leaving his followers confused by the lack of immediate fury. They were ushered toward the segregated guest residence prepared by the magnificent Ping family. Despite the insult, the Sword Palace guest remains impassive as the servant offers hospitality. The imposing Ping guard steps forward, furious at the perceived slight against his house, while the younger attendant remains watchful. Your subordinate, frustrated by the blatant disrespect, struggled to contain his rage. The nervous retainer watched his young master carefully, noticing his unusual, unsettling calm. The concealed young master finally emerged, his presence noted by his annoyed escort. The arrogant Ping Hyuk steps forward, mockingly welcoming their supposed guests. The Ping family leader dismissed the need for pleasantries, focused solely on the rising status of the Sword Palace. The calm moment shattered as a powerful hand slammed down, questioning who dared to lecture him. Even shrouded in this humiliating waiting game, Namgung Hyuk observed everything with narrowed, intense eyes. Trapped beneath the heavy cloth, a desperate thought crosses his mind: how to escape this humiliating situation. The sudden appearance of the Sword Palace envoy left the Namgung group utterly speechless, caught off guard by the shift in attention. His intense gaze promised retaliation, though he mysteriously restrained himself for now. As their superior was dragged away, the subordinate could only watch in shock and confusion. The Sword Palace representative's sudden appearance completely overshadowed the Namgung delegation's slight. The envoy group, now fully aware of the insult, could only exchange incredulous glances. His quiet resolve was beginning to crack under the growing disrespect. The young master remained strangely silent, his impassive gaze unnerving his companions. The challenger from the Sword Palace has made a sudden, shocking appearance, striking with incredible speed. Even as the Ping family head considered exchanging pleasantries, his son acted decisively. The aide paled, clutching her head in disbelief at the young master's unexpected leniency. The annoyance persisted, but a surprising silence fell over their young master. Namgung Hyuk remained silent, his composure masking the raging humiliation felt by his entourage. The Ping family members reveal their eager, almost predatory smiles, eager to meet their new guest. Ignoring the insults, Ping Hyuk breaks into an eager run toward his next target. Even the normally outspoken attendants are stunned silent by the sudden recognition of the Sword Palace. Despite his companion's insistence on immediate retaliation, the young master remained strangely calm, breathing deeply. The Namgung envoys, caught off guard, couldn't anticipate the Ping family's immediate and rough treatment. Suddenly, the elder brother grabbed the other, lifting him with startling ease. His brother's composure bewildered him. Why wasn't he raging against the humiliation? Despite his companions urging him to leave, the young master paused, a tense decision brewing beneath his forced calm. The Hebe Ping family headquarters stood magnificent under the bright sun, an imposing display of power. The Ping family patriarch sat waiting, the atmosphere thick with his family's newfound arrogance. The Hebe Ping family young master, Ping Young-hyuk, reveals himself with a smug certainty. The Ping family head savors the moment, his expression a mask of confident disdain. Ping Qianhui simply savored his tea, while his son looked on with a self-satisfied smirk. The Ping head smirked, confident that his plan to humiliate the Namgung envoys was proceeding perfectly. The family head, Ping Qianhui, faced his subordinate, ready to dictate their next move. The Ping family head, Ping Qianhui, considered their next move against the humbled Namgung envoys. The Ping family patriarch sneered, dismissing any need for immediate confrontation or politeness. The guests depart, leaving the manor quiet as the scheming Ping family retreats to strategize. Despite the family's ruin, the Ping members gorged themselves without shame, happily devouring the feast. Despite the family's declining prestige, he devours the Peking duck with unrestrained delight, much to his companions' dismay. The insult aimed at the heavenly demon clearly struck a nerve, eliciting a sharp reaction from the hostess. The gluttonous Ping Young-hyuk finally looks up as the Namgung family head arrives. The Sword Palace lady addressed the Ping family, praising their son's supposed skill. The Ping family's current state was irrelevant. The focus remained solely on devouring the famous Peking duck. The host burst into booming laughter, welcoming the young visitor with forced enthusiasm. The patriarch offered a grand welcome, masking his surprise at the unexpected visitation. The Ping family head offered a seemingly welcoming, yet calculating, smile. The second son, seemingly recovered, gives a suggestive, amused acknowledgement to the family head. The Ping family head offered a mocking, overly formal greeting to the honored guests. The Sword Palace emissary watched the younger man devour the food with undisguised delight. The arrogant host's smug facade cracked, betrayed by a suppressed, derisive laugh. The absurdity of the situation caused a visible shock to ripple through the Ping family member. Despite the family's disgrace, Ping Young-hyuk savored the delicacy with utter impunity. The sheer audacity of his feast amidst the tension left the elder speechless, wondering if the cloth around his neck was bedding. The elder's imposing presence and aggressive gesture silenced the younger man's brief outburst. Despite the tense atmosphere and the arrival of high-ranking guests, Ping Ryong continued to devour the famous Peking duck with ravenous intensity. The Ping family head held a calculating look as he considered the Sword Palace delegation. The Sword Palace lady observed the brazen display, her expression unreadable amidst the Ping family's arrogance. The head of the Namgung family presses the issue, wondering about their unexpected arrival. The head of the Namgung family finally arrives, but the Ping son remains completely engrossed in his meal. The patriarch's inner monologue was clearly agitated by the audacity of the conversation. He tries to salvage his crass comment, immediately backtracking with a self-aware correction. The intense exchange over past martial glories concluded, and the Sword Palace master turned his focus back to Ryong. The host watched the visitor, a low, skeptical sound escaping his lips. The Sword Palace's young lord observed the bizarre scene with visible discomfort and a slight bead of sweat. The host maintains a facade of welcome, gesturing grandly toward the unexpected Sword Palace guests. The head of the Namgung family offers a condescending welcome, clearly unimpressed by Ping Young-hyuk's continued feasting. The Ping family elder fumed, while the younger generation continued to argue over the heavenly demon's legacy. The young master's flippant dismissal of the heavenly demon's legend infuriated the elder Ping. The host's attempt to dismiss the heavenly demon's claims was met with frustrated silence, followed by a sharp, tense movement at the table. The heavenly demon's lineage was questioned, and Ping Young-hyuk responded with a smug, knowing smile. The heavenly demon, cornered, accuses the young lord of calling him a liar. The heavenly demon seethed internally, caught off guard by the implication that the Blade King's skill was merely matching his own. Despite their boasting, Ping Yong-hyuk's arrogance was thinly veiled. The Ping family member, outraged by the unexpected defense, lunged forward, his anger barely contained. The young master of the Sword Palace offered a polite but firm gesture, acknowledging the strange situation. The casual dismissal of the heavenly demon's reputation earned a silent, mocking smirk. His dismissive commentary on the heavenly demon's power ignited immediate, furious outrage. The intense discussion over martial arts styles continued, leaving the observers tense. The host offered a thinly veiled, mocking laugh, pleased with the awkward situation he had engineered. The Sword Palace's representative observes the Ping patriarch with a measured silence. Ignoring all decorum, Ping Yong-hyuk continued to devour the delicious Peking duck. The Ping family head interrogates the young guest about his presence, noticing his unfamiliarity. The host stood stiffly while the guest continued to devour the luxurious feast with shocking disregard. His forced smile betrayed a deeper calculation beneath the surface of their unexpected meeting. The host, Ping Yong-hyuk, gestures grandly, masking his simmering resentment beneath a veneer of hospitality. Cheonggang Mountain, the final destination, stands before him, its architecture majestic and isolated. As the initial pleasantries concluded, the elder formally introduced his son, Ping Yong-hyuk, to the honored guests. His casual laughter in response to the heavenly demon comparison clearly infuriated the Ping family members. The arrogance of the Ping family's words was too much to bear, sparking immediate, contained fury. The insult hangs heavy in the air as the host recoils from the brazen audacity. The elder of the Namgung family begins his grand assessment of the situation. The Ping family had observed the guests, his expression unreadable amidst the grand setting. The Sword Palace heir is formally introduced, his name spoken with quiet authority. The elder Ping family member scowled, clearly insulted by the heavenly demon's casual dismissal of past legends. The Ping family patriarch sputtered in disbelief as the absurdity of the heavenly demon's reputation was being dismantled before his eyes. As the grand banquet concluded and the last of the Ping family dispersed, silence finally descended upon the halls. The elder Ping sneers, reacting to the unexpected challenge to his family's honor. The Ping head offered a smug, dismissive sound, clearly unimpressed by the Sword Palace's arrival. With the pleasantries exchanged, the focus now shifts to the departing Namgung entourage. The elder Ping steps forward, radiating an air of self-importance as the Sword Palace entourage arrives. With the guests momentarily distracted or departed, the clandestine mission could finally begin under the dark, watchful sky. With the guests finally gone, the true objective could begin under the cloak of night. The lingering guests finally dispersed, granting him a moment of solitude. Now, he sprinted towards his goal, Cheonggang Mountain. He finally found the right moment. The banquet guests dispersed. Recalling Gung Mok's dedication to preserving knowledge, he must have hidden secrets here too. Gung Mok, sorry. I'll save myself first and return it properly to Shaolin later. Gung Mok's obsessive need to preserve knowledge suggests he surely left secrets here. Gung Mok certainly hid his secrets well, but now the prize is mine. With the guests finally gone, the path to Cheonggang Mountain was clear. Frustrated by the lack of markings, he finally decides to rely on brute force and digging. Frustrated by the futile search, his rage unleashes a devastating sweep across the mountainside. Frustrated by the lack of clues, he pushes his limits, sprinting further into the darkness. He raced along the path, following the coordinates, but the sheer rock faces loomed ahead. He stands before the imposing, jagged peaks, realizing the sheer scale of the task ahead. Frustrated by the lack of clues, he scanned the desolate, rocky terrain once more. Frustrated by the fruitless search, he decides to finally use his strength. The frustrating search continued between the rugged, unforgiving rock formations. The narrow passage offered no concealment, leaving him completely exposed and frustrated. Frustrated by the lack of clues, he forced a strained expression, determined to keep searching. Frustrated by the dead ends, his rage boils over against the deception. Frustrated by the lack of clues, the hero resolves to brute force the situation, shattering the earth in a desperate excavation. Frustration mounts as the desperate search yields only the sound of rock scraping rock. Pushing past his limit, the young master gasped under the strain of the grueling task. Frustrated by the lack of clues, the weary seeker resolves to use brute force. The Thunder Dragon Corps followed their master, bursting forth with unrestrained energy against the setting sun. The young master's allies immediately engage, the training finally put to the test. The hurried figure departs, leaving the veiled woman watching with deep suspicion. His companion, masked and silent, waited as the young master grappled with his failure to find the hiding spot. The captain voiced his mounting anxiety about the missing second young master, despite the other's relief. A moment of silent contemplation, perhaps calculating the next move or savoring the deception. His companions anxiously watched, one taking a nervous breath, awaiting his response. The captain and his subordinate exchanged worried glances, sensing something was amiss with the young master's erratic behavior. The guard expresses deep apprehension about the unpredictable nature of the second young master. The sudden, ominous sound startled the woman as she stood in the bustling environment. Despite days of fruitless digging, the young master collapsed in utter exhaustion, his desperate search yielding nothing. The second young master's exhausted look met the urgent confrontation of his subordinate. Despite the fruitless search, his obsessive nature pushed him to keep straining, desperate for any sign. The exasperated guards could only watch as the two figures hurried away toward the main compound. The innkeeper, sworn to silence, now keeps watch as the young master's strenuous work continues in the next room. The Thunder Dragon Corps members were thoroughly confused by the young master's sudden call to work hard. He strains against the effort, his exhaustion warring with his determination to find Gung Mok's hidden trail. The Thunder Dragon Corps were eager for the promised hard work, their excitement completely masking the young master's ominous intent. His desperate exertion over the hidden box seemed to climax in utter disbelief. Their easy laughter immediately vanished, replaced by sudden, shared alarm. The young master aggressively silenced the innkeeper, demanding absolute secrecy about their destination. The younger brother reeled back, shocked, as the master delivered a sharp, unexpected slap. The forceful pat on the head confirms the young master's intent, leaving her utterly bewildered. The subordinate's whispers about him being a lecher reached the second young master. His wide, manic grin promised both high spirits and impending chaos for his bewildered men. Gathering the Thunder Dragon Corps, their boisterous energy broke the tense quiet. The entourage arrives at a grand, imposing structure, their destination finally in sight. A good place? Where might this good place be? He mused, a familiar, mischievous glint returning to his eyes. The subordinate expresses confusion and growing apprehension about his young master's sudden instructions. The Thunder Dragon Corps members reacted with wide-eyed enthusiasm to the promise of hard work. The Thunder Dragon Corps cheered enthusiastically, ready to follow their young master anywhere, even if it meant hard labor. The eager subordinate leans in close, anticipating the young master's next command with unsettling excitement. The air grew tense as the group arrived at a large, imposing compound under the dark night sky. The elders finally convened, their discussion heavy with the Namgung clan's behavior. The captain's unease about the second young master's sudden absence was palpable. The captain, still uneasy about the second young master's absence, presses for answers. The opulent cup is firmly grasped, a moment of tense anticipation before the unspoken plan unfolds. The younger Namgung brothers emerge with a palpable, chilling aura of power. Savoring the moment, the elder allowed the whispers of scandal to fuel his dark ambition. The Thunder Dragon Corps members were utterly convinced by the young master's grand invitation to work up a sweat. Finally, they arrive at the imposing, illuminated pleasure house. The opulence of this private room, lit by countless candles, promised a decadent evening ahead for the Thunder Dragon Corps. The lavish feast was laid out, an ostentatious display for the assembled Thunder Dragon Corps. The Thunder Dragon Corps members finally basked in the lavish spread the young master had provided. He offered a knowing, slightly menacing smile, his agreement clear. The Thunder Dragon Corps was clearly ready for whatever strenuous activity their young master had planned. His forced grin suggested he had a plan brewing, one that kept the Thunder Dragon Corps on edge. Fueled by rich food, the Thunder Dragon Corps dug in with gusto, momentarily forgetting their master's strange orders. The lavish spread of rare delicacies was truly a feast fit for heroes. The innkeeper was given a stark warning. This must remain a secret, even from ghosts. His men enthusiastically agreed, their loyalty solidified by the feast. The young master suddenly appeared, beaming, leaving his companions stunned by his triumphant return. The guards anxiously questioned the young master's whereabouts, feeling an unsettling premonition. His unsettling, knowing grin suggested he finally had a plan to unleash his pent-up energy. The Thunder Dragon Corps members stood tense, their expressions shifting from confusion to dawning apprehension. Wrong? The mysterious woman ensures the innkeeper understands the arrangement for the coming night. The innkeeper smiles knowingly, presenting the weighty bag, confirming the deal was done. The fruitless search leaves him bewildered, staring out at the desolate terrain. The Thunder Dragon Corps arrived at the desolate, rocky location, sensing something was deeply wrong. The harsh reality of their situation sinks in, reflecting the desolate landscape. Just what kind of desolate place have we arrived at now? The delayed envoys finally appeared, met by immediate fury and the threat of violence. As Ping family guests squabbled, Namgung Ryong finally made his imposing entrance. Amidst the dark, oppressive sky, the young master points forward with clear urgency. The overseer's chilling threat hangs in the air, eliciting shocked gasps from the forced laborers below. The master's harsh words still echoed, leaving the exhausted envoys bewildered and slightly fearful. As young Master Ping tried to mediate, Namgung Ryong stepped forward, clearly ready to assert his status. The furious host finally erupted, demanding an immediate explanation for the envoys' outrageous tardiness. The arrogant envoys, already late, now face a sudden, violent confrontation. Namgung Ryong arrives with an overwhelming display of power, silencing the squabbling envoys. The overseer's voice boomed, his patience utterly spent as he loomed over the frightened diggers. The chilling display of sword energy had momentarily stunned the digger, but the overseer was having none of it. Young Master Namgung Ryong's arrival immediately halts the brewing tension among the assembled guests. With the digging resumed under the dark sky, sheer exertion drives the final, desperate heat. As the delegates finally arrived, their sluggishness ignited the host's rising fury. The envoy's shocking tardiness stirred palpable outrage among the assembled young masters. The shocked man recoiled as Namgung Ryong mockingly presented a challenge. Brother Ping, seeing his guests refuse to arrive, feigned a welcoming smile despite his growing impatience. The tension breaks as Namgung Ryong's unexpected skill manifests, striking one of the slackers with brutal force. As the tension mounted, the powerful grip slammed down, emphasizing the raw physicality of the confrontation. The sheer power radiating from Ryong was almost too much, even for his companion. The sheer, crackling power surrounding Ryong confirmed the sudden, sharp challenge in the air. The Namgung envoy, caught off guard, is struck by a sudden, explosive burst of raw sword energy. The sudden surge of lightning energy erupting from his body shocked everyone present. The Ping family member's fury boils over as he demands respect for their invited guests. The sheer force of the threat causes a visceral reaction as the final warning rings out. An urgent shout breaks the tense standoff as someone recognizes the arrival of their master within the grand estate. Peng Qian, beaming with confidence, welcomes his guests as the host of the gathering. Peng Qian beamed, enjoying the immediate deference shown by his gathered guests. He dismisses the genuine camaraderie, mistaking loyalty for mere pandering. The young master's confidence was unwavering as he basked in the fawning praise of his assembled guests. The lingering thread of a duel hung in the air, making the young master Namgung Ryong's arrival instantly tense. Seeing the sheer arrogance displayed by the arrivals, Namgang Ryong could only grit his teeth in silent fury. The host, smiling broadly, extends an open hand toward the concerned guest. The confident young Master Ping is met with a familiar, almost familial, touch to his chin. Young Master Namgang Ryong's condescending smirk signals his readiness to engage. The conversation shifts abruptly back to the main topic as the smiling host leans in. The young master's smug expression confirms his self-assurance against any potential rival. The jovial atmosphere continued as the Yang family young master vouched for his sincerity. The envoy, Namgang Ryong, finally arrives, earning a condescending smirk from the Ping family members. A flicker of suspicion crosses his face as he processes the shocking news of his envoy's whereabouts. The smug young master, Ping, basks in the flattery of his guests. Peng Qian beams, pleased with the assembly of allied young masters he has gathered. Yan Hagun expresses sincere gratitude, emphasizing the strength of their long-standing alliance with the Ping family. The angry subordinate challenged the slacker's disrespect, ready to mete out punishment. The young master smirked, relishing the deference shown by his guests. The anticipation hangs heavy as the young master Ping listens to the speculation about Namgang Ryong's return. Peng Qian calmly sips his drink, unfazed by the other guests' abrupt outburst. The rising tension finally erupted as young master Namgang Ryong delivered a sharp, unexpected strike. With the young master taking a steady sip, the assembled guests nodded in agreement to his boasting. The atmosphere settles as Peng Qian sips his drink, surrounded by his eager guests. Peng Qian laughed heartily, basking in the praise of his gathered allies. The Ping family's arrogance was palpable as they basked in their own flattering affirmations. His confident smirk promised further provocation regarding the Namgang envoy. The Ping family members seethed, barely containing their indignation at the envoy's disrespect. Peng Qian basked in the flattery, his arrogance unchecked as he enjoyed the assembled company. The tension broke as the two battered envoys were forcefully presented before the gathered lords. The exhausted envoy clearly felt the shame of his companion's suspected misdeeds. The servants, clearly overwhelmed and ashamed by their companion's escapades, could only react with abject terror. The exhausted envoy, likely from the supposed debauchery, collapses onto the table with a heavy thud. The sudden collapse of the envoys shattered the expectant atmosphere of fellowship. The other guests were shocked, wondering if their envoys had been delayed by pleasures of the city. The Ping family members were stunned by their envoy's shocking excuse for their tardiness. The host's impatience boiled over, demanding to know why his supposed honored guests were causing such an insult. The Ping family's host erupts, furious at the envoys' blatant disrespect after their long wait. The Ping family patriarch offered a welcoming yet calculating smile. The Ping host, with his loyal followers smirking behind him, asserts his authority in this gathering. The insulted envoy explodes with fury, calling out the renowned Namgang name. Young Master Namgang Ryong's sudden appearance and intense demeanor clearly commanded attention. The young master's outrage escalated, confronting the disrespectful guest with sharp accusation. Despite his humiliating defeat, Yan Hagun roared, his pride still boiling over. His challenge accepted, the arrogant Yan Hagun felt Namgang Ryong's chilling invitation to fight. Having dismissed the earlier insults, Namgang Ryong now pressed the advantage, demanding a final answer from the defeated Yan Hagun. The defeated Yan Hagun struggled for an excuse, his pride wounded by the swift defeat. Yan Hagun, utterly defeated by a single blow, desperately scrambled to save face. The other young master gloated, clearly delighted by the unfolding insult. Ping Yunhua steps forward, defending the legitimacy of the duel against the accusers. The princess arrives, drawing the immediate, deferential attention of the gathered guests. Ping Yunhua, the princess, steps forward with a knowing smirk, challenging the escalating tension. The nobleman's sneer hardened as the other guest offered a formal, if slightly mocking, salute. The princess applauds enthusiastically, playing the gracious host even amidst rising tensions. Yanhua's unsettling calm contrasts sharply with the defeated warrior's stuttering denial. The Yan brothers, emboldened by their insults, pressed their confrontation, expecting further capitulation. Kim Yun-hwa steps forward, a confident smile gracing her lips despite the rising tension. Yan Ha-gun was visibly unnerved by the brazen insult directed at his elder brother. Ping Yun-hwa observed the verbal assault, her expression unwavering as the Yun family's secrets were exposed. Even as his younger brother seethed, Namgang Ryong maintained a look of smug composure. With Yan Ha-gun soundly defeated, Namgang Ryong simply stared, absorbing the insult just delivered. The entourage of Yan Ha-gun watched in shock as the humiliation deepened. The previously mocked young Master Yan now spits a warning, promising consequences for the insult. Yan Ha-gun, flustered by the sudden challenge, desperately sought validation from his older brother. Yan Ha-gun, emboldened by his earlier insults, sneered, inviting the inevitable confrontation. The mention of Qiangong Mountain and lost manuals silences the room. With a single decisive palm strike, Yan Ha-gun crumpled, silencing his arrogant boasting instantly. Yan Ha-gun's explosive frustration was met with a cool, almost mocking amusement from the onlookers. Even after humiliating the Yan heir, the arrogance of the onlookers persisted. The young master erupted, incandescent with rage over the sheer audacity of the insult. As Yan Ha-gun's brother reacted with horror, the victor demanded they move quickly from the scene. His calm demeanor was suddenly pierced by an aggressive accusation, shocking him mid-sentence. The arrogance only fueled Namgang Ryong's cold fury as he issued his challenge. The defeated Yan Ha-gun howled in indignation, completely unable to accept his swift defeat. The smug victor gloated, enjoying the sheer shock radiating from his defeated opponent. Yan Ha-gun's furious reaction to the mention of Qiangong Mountain stunned his brother. Despite the rough victory, the slight tremor in the fist betrayed Yan Ha-gun's internal trauma. The casual dismissal of their martial secret visibly shocked the Yan family attendant. Yan Ha-gun's smug laughter escalated as his companions joined in the mockery, utterly dismissing the insult. Yan Ha-gun maintained his smug smirk, watching the fallout of his boast. The casual dismissal of their family name infuriated Yan Ha-gun, while the speaker seemed utterly unbothered. Yan Ha-gun burned with impotent fury after being utterly humiliated and defeated. Yan Ha-gun roared, his pride boiling over as he prepared a desperate, furious strike. Dismissing their claims of ambush, Kyong scoffed at the desperate attempts to shift blame. Yan Ha-gun, recovering from his swift defeat, vows revenge on the arrogant Namgang Ryong. The defeated Yan Ha-gun could only stare in shock as his humiliation deepened. Despite the chaos, young Lady Ping observes the victorious Namgang Ryong, questioning his apparent calm. The air crackles with unspoken tension as one spectator wonders about the mounting feud between the brothers. The defeated Yan Ha-gun, seething with humiliation, swore revenge for the Thunder Fist insult. The decisive, crushing blow connects, silencing the arrogant young Master Yan. The boastful Yan Ha-gun charged, only to meet Kyung's devastating, precise palm strike head-on. Yan Ha-gun recoiled, the blow shattering his arrogance in an instant. Despite the earlier claims of merely practicing, Yan Ha-gun's face contorts in shock as the blow connects with staggering power. The decisive blow lands, silencing the boasts with a raw, agonizing scream. Yan Ha-gun's aggressive lunge was met with immediate, crushing force, ending his boastful challenge instantly. Ignoring the failed duelists, he continued his casual assessment of the world. The sound of bone-jarring impact echoes as Yan Ha-gun reels from the decisive blow. Yan Ha-gun could not fathom how he had been defeated so utterly and quickly. Yan Ha-gun, reeling from the unexpected blow, could only stammer in disbelief. Yan Ha-gun vehemently insists on the legitimacy of the confrontation, despite his recent, swift defeat. The taunt about the lost manual hung heavy in the air, eliciting a stunned, disbelieving reaction. Yan Ha-gun recoiled, furious that his arrogance had been so brutally exposed. His sinister smile confirmed he hadn't forgotten the insult. The mention of the secret manual struck a nerve. Yan Ha-gun's defeat only fueled his simmering fury, his jaw clenched tight against the searing humiliation. Brother Yan's furious attempt to fight back was immediately restrained by his companion. The casual mention of a lost secret manual has struck a raw nerve within the Yan family. The defeated Yan Ha-gun violently protests the honorable loss, accusing Namgung Ryong of foul play. Ping Yunhua steps forward, trying to intervene as Yan Ha-gun reels from the shock. The insult about the Thunder Fist technique stunned the Yan family brother into silence, much to Yanhua's outrage. Ping Yunhua erupted, fiercely defending Namgung Ryong's actions as a legitimate duel, not a treacherous ambush. Yunhua stepped in, firmly supporting her family's honor against the slander. Yan Ha-gun tried to feign surprise, but his thinly veiled arrogance was starting to show. Ping Yunhua stepped in, refusing to let her family's honor be tarnished by false accusations of ambush. Ping Yunhua stepped forward, her hand reaching out, questioning the sudden tension. The insult had landed, and Namgung Kyong found himself openly laughing at the flustered and offended Yan Ha-gun. Ping Yunhua subtly reacted, her composure unwavering despite the escalating insults. Yan Ha-gun, spitting blood and clearly defeated, could only choke in disbelief at his swift downfall. Yanhua's composed stance draws a sharp observation from her brother about their father's surprising favoritism. The victor yawned, clearly bored now that the insolent challenger was defeated. Stunned silence followed the brutal defeat. Yan Ha-gun seethed with raw, bloody fury. The shock of the instant defeat hung heavy as Yan Ha-gun choked on his own blood, utterly defeated. Despite his quick victory, Namgung Ryong's smug defiance only fueled the outrage. Yan Ha-gun, bloodied and defeated, could only sputter as Namgung Ryong remained unimpressed by his rage. The victorious Namgung Ryong pondered the implications of the Yan family's lost secret manual. His arrogance met with a swift, decisive strike, leaving him stunned and physically recoiling from the impact. Yan Ha-gun's boast about his Thunder Fist technique was immediately met with scornful dismissal. The shock of realizing the sacred mountain was merely a hill settled over them, punctuated by heavy, strained breaths. He retreated from the confrontation, deep in thought about the collapsed mountain. The protagonist, realizing the true scale of the mountain's disappearance, stiffens with a sharp intake of breath. The shocking realization about the false mountain sent the young master into a visible, panicked frenzy. Witnessing the utter futility of their previous efforts, the manager erupts in sheer, outraged disbelief. The subordinate trembled, utterly caught between the young master's rage and the need to survive. Her realization about the collapsed mountain clearly unsettled her. His outburst of righteous anger connected, knocking the informer back with a sharp, dizzying blow. The subordinates, utterly beaten, could only watch as their young master's fury raged on. The shocking realization that the mountain they were digging on was a fake left him pale and speechless. The confrontation explodes into a vortex of blinding, violent energy, swallowing the opponent whole. The resulting battle was so catastrophic that the landscape itself was fundamentally altered. The exhausted workers see their young master approaching, fear mixing with apprehension. Suddenly, a formidable presence emerged from the swirling energy, armed and ready for confrontation. The revelation that the mountain was fake left her stunned, struggling to process the sheer scale of the deception. The realization that the mountain itself was destroyed struck him with cold dread. Even in the darkness, the jagged, collapsed peaks of the real Cheongong mountain were evident. The deputy's sudden gentle approach made the worn-out subordinates instantly suspicious. The realization of the collapsed main peak struck him with sheer horror. The young master departed silently, leaving the others stunned by his strange reaction. The realization that the banquet was imminent hit him, but his focus remained fixed on the digging. The shock of the collapsed mountain left the young master reeling, his bravado momentarily stripped away. Gungmok's marking. A cave entrance appeared right here. In a blinding flash of power and heat, a descent begins, marking the culmination of intense revelation. The sudden assault left the guards scattered and defeated, raising immediate suspicion in the remaining strongmen. The sheer audacity of these subordinates, digging with such minimal effort. The spies, startled by the sudden tension, peered out, sensing danger lurking nearby. Even beaten down, a flicker of hope or defiance remained etched on his scarred face. The deputy, utterly exhausted but still alert, shifts his weight, sensing something amiss in the night air. Confronted with the potential massive deception, the loyal subordinate readied himself for a fight. A raw surge of anger explodes outward, confirming his frustration with the deception. The enforcers, clearly associated with the main family's dissenters, confirm their grim intentions. The discovery that the mountain was fake sent the digging party into an absolute frenzy. He was enraged that they were digging in the same area they had just declared empty. The shock of realizing the true location was lost quickly morphed into aggressive possessiveness. The sheer effort of their futile digging made the subordinate mutter in frustration. The deputy, driven by sheer exhaustion, felt a surprising surge of anger bubble up. The exhausted digger breathed a sigh, accepting the grim reality of their unrelenting labor. Despite his efforts, the gruff worker was quickly overpowered by the young master's sheer will. Recognizing the distinctive marker, the follower erupted in furious realization. The branch manager's weak protest about selling wrong information was immediately silenced by brutal force. The informant, clearly terrified, pleads for mercy regarding the faulty map coordinates. The confrontation explodes as the young master unleashes a brutal strike upon the offending informant. The branch manager's frantic denial was cut short by a swift, brutal takedown. The terrified informant knelt, his terror palpable as the young master loomed over him. The informant stammered, desperately trying to save face after their grave error. The gravity of the collapsed main peak visibly shook the startled young master. With his explanation finished, the young master stares down the groveling branch manager and his men. The branch manager, clearly terrified, shook with anticipation as he awaited the young master's judgment. The young master's fury erupted into a decisive, punishing blow against the informant. The subordinate groaned, reeling from the shock of the ruined mission and the implication of the name change. The shocking realization that their mountain was a sham left the young master stunned and speechless. The revelation sinks in. The current mountain is a pale imitation of the true, lost sight. The informant recoiled in terror as the imposing man loomed over him. His confident posture suggested he had found the missing link to their family's strength. The branch manager, panicking over the changed name, pleaded desperately for mercy, his anger mounting. He demanded justification for the lost time and effort. The discovery of the true location ignited a furious possessiveness in the rebels. Suddenly, desperate cries cut through the quiet night as impacts strike the structure. The sudden, jarring sounds of impact broke the silence as figures collapsed onto the dark earth, staring out at the desolate, ravaged peaks under the dark sky. The truth settled heavily. This terrain was a ghost of the real mountain. His face hardened, realizing the depth of this deception. The reality of the collapsed peak hits them. What were they even reacting to? The sheer scale of the devastation sunk in. The very mountain they knew was a lie. The raw power unleashed by the Thunder Fist technique is measured in terrifying increments. The relentless digging had taken its toll, but suddenly, a strange sound interrupts their desperate toil. The sound of movement alerts them as the young master pauses his upward gaze, sensing another presence. They ran fast, but the sound of their frantic pursuit followed closely behind. A sound breaks the quiet night as they spot movement near the rocks. The discovery of the real Cheongong Mountain meant abandoning the birthday banquet preparations entirely. The discovery of their shared, clandestine activity hung heavy in the night air. His sly smile suggested he already had an advantage over his followers. The discovery of the marking confirmed their pursuit was on the right track. The subordinate tried to reason with the volatile young master, who was frantic over the mountain's supposed deception. His casual insults about their digging echoing. The man instantly regretted every word spoken. The frantic digging paused as Gungmok's marking was spotted on the rock face. The intense, exhausting digging had finally paid off. Someone had struck something significant. Recognizing those symbols, he knew instantly who they belonged to. A sudden, powerful strike shatters the silence, catching the surprised men off guard. The man howled, his voice raw with rage and outrage at the discovery. The young master's relentless defense had momentarily stunned the invaders, allowing him a crucial moment. As his devastating attack was effortlessly brushed aside, one of the stunned intruders frantically pointed towards the unseen threat. The arrogance of the second son had met an immovable force, shattering his aggressive posture. His desperate plea turned into a raw, primal scream of outrage. The final, arrogant threat from the second son met only with a blinding display of overwhelming power. The overwhelming power of the young master's strike tore through the assassins, leaving shock and terror in its wake. His furious demand was met only with a chilling lack of respect, prompting a renewed, aggressive charge. The startled intruders, realizing their target was not retreating, lunged forward with drawn blades. His ultimate technique was shattered, leaving him speechless and utterly terrified. The leader's enraged command echoed, and the shocked Thunder Dragon core immediately snapped back to attention. Ignoring the desperate pleas, he channels immense power into his blade. The owner unleashes a burst of raw power, shattering the Thunder Dragon core formation instantly. The invaders watched in stunned horror as their target vanished into the depths. The young master's casual dismissal left the powerful elder utterly stunned. The devastating force of the counterattack unleashed a horrifying scream as blood sprayed outwards. Master Blood Shadow's ultimate attack met a chillingly solid block. The sheer number of them barely registered, as the owner stood firm against the advancing threat. The ground trembles as more figures converge, their footsteps heavy with malicious intent. The sudden surge of combat jolted the onlookers, pulling them from their anticipation. The Thunder Dragon core closed ranks, their sheer numbers forming an imposing wall against the lone intruder. The invaders felt their earlier bravado evaporate as the masked men closed in, ready for battle. The Thunder Dragon core braced themselves, realizing their initial assault was just the opening act. The Thunder Dragon core soldiers charged forward, unified in their aggressive advance. The arrogant man's powerful strike was met with effortless defense, shocking the attacker. The aggressive invaders were momentarily stunned by the owner's defiant stand. The stunned Blood Shadow follower could only scream in impotent rage as his master fell. The shock of the Blood Shadow's power reverberated as the attackers recoiled, their surprise absolute. The might of the Blood Shadow's technique slams the arrogant opponent into the dirt. The defeated master finally recoils, leaving only the echoes of his misplaced arrogance. The chamber stands empty, lit by flickering torches. The chaos outside fades as someone inside the secret chamber begins to cackle in wicked anticipation. The superior Blood Shadow's ultimate technique failed to stop the young master, leaving his subordinate utterly shocked. With the owner's furious command echoing, one of the masked intruders rushed forward to engage. The terrified subordinate, seeing his master defeated, can only demand the truth of this stranger's identity. The defeated master could only watch in disbelief as the young man mocked his arrogance. With his deadly technique defeated, the opponent's arrogance shattered, leaving only stunned disbelief. The masked intruder recoils as the young master descends upon them like a vengeful spirit. The young master, utterly furious, screeched his identity once more. Despite his previous boasts, the Blood Shadow's ultimate attack was merely a stepping stone. His initial shock quickly turned into a desperate, blazing counterattack against the intruder. The Blood Shadow user unleashed a final, desperate surge of power, roaring as the technique manifested. The Blood Shadow's Blood Rain Heaven technique was broken, leaving the masked assailant stunned. The devastating power of the technique slams into the ceiling, shattering the stone above. The Thunder Dragon core attack meets brutal, swift resistance. His desperate shouts echoed as the reality of his defeat set in, a crimson spray marking the final blow. He could not comprehend how his ultimate technique was so effortlessly nullified. The masked subordinate prepares his blade, his expressionless face intensifying the menace. Frustrated by the endless stream of attackers, he questioned why everyone instantly sought his death. The defeated Blood Shadow recoils, stunned by the sheer power he just faced. Despite his prior boasting, the opponent launched one final, desperate lunge, screaming his last breath. The ultimate attack met an immovable defense, shattering his confidence. The heir from the Blood Shadow's family made his ultimate move, but the young master easily deflected the Blood Rain Heaven technique. The shock was palpable as the masked fighter recoiled, utterly baffled by the strength of his unseen opponent. The second son of the Namgung family erupts with aggressive power, intent on vengeance. The masked man, cornered and desperate, finally drew his own blade. The defeated master recognized his assailant, the notorious second son of the Namgung family. He casually plucked an imaginary piece of dirt from his ear, unfazed by the utter devastation he'd just caused. Even the supposedly deadly Blood Shadow's ultimate technique failed to deter the owner. Even after shattering his ultimate technique, the youth remained stubbornly defiant. Despite the desperate shouts, the masked man summons the ultimate Blood Shadow's Blood Rain Heaven technique. The Blood Shadow's ultimate technique erupted, a blinding, fiery wave of destruction. The attackers watched in stunned silence as the young master's ultimate technique was effortlessly brushed aside. The master of the Blood Shadows unveils his ultimate technique, the Blood Rain Heaven. The boastful words of the second son are met with a terrifying, overwhelming torrent of flame. The ultimate Blood Shadow technique unleashes an overwhelming, blinding explosion of energy. Master Blood Shadow's ultimate technique slammed down, yet the young master barely reacted, only a slight escaping his lips. The arrogant foe finally unleashes a devastating technique, but our protagonist merely smiles, ready to counter. Master Blood's ultimate technique met an immovable, blinding counterforce. The defeated Blood Shadow Master recoils, his confidence shattered by the overwhelming display of power. The previous attacker reels back in disbelief, his aggressive strike utterly neutralized. The invincible Blood Shadow's ultimate technique shattered, leaving him utterly stunned by the sheer force. The mighty Blood Shadow's ultimate attack was met with sheer, electrifying force. The terrifying power of the Blood Shadows faded, leaving the masked master utterly spent and defeated. The Blood Shadow falters, witnessing the sheer, overwhelming power unleashed by the proprietor. The mighty Blood Shadow is utterly shattered by the owner's simple presence. The overwhelming power displayed silenced the arrogant attacker, who now reeled from the unexpected clash. The overwhelming power of the Overlord's Soul Thousand Hands crushes the attackers instantly. Witnessing their master's sudden defeat, the remaining guards could only stare in sheer disbelief. The terrifying force of the counterattack sends the masked man reeling back in shock. The mighty Master Blood Shadows is struck down, coughing up a torrent of blood. The masked man, bloodied and gasping, finally understood the sheer power difference before him. Sighing again, he calmly reiterated his claim of ownership over everything here. The chaos continued, but now, an intense focus sharpened his gaze before the strike. The sheer force of the blow connected with sickening finality, splattering blood everywhere. The sheer force of the blow left the man choking on his own blood, his defenses utterly shattered. The attackers, having cornered their target, surged forward as their masked brethren closed in. The lone infiltrator, having gathered what he needed, now faced his stunned captors with a cold, calculating smile. Seeing their desperate resolve, the confident young man paused, his grin suggesting he knew their fate. The arrival of the Tiger Corps brought confusion, meeting the sudden, aggressive draw of swords from the Thunder Dragon Corps. The subordinate, seeing the chaos unfold, clearly felt helpless and utterly out of his depth. Ignoring his brother's plea, Namgung Ryong's focus remained coldly fixed on the mission ahead. The Ping family forces, alerted to the commotion, began to deploy their patrols. He let out a heavy sigh as the masked enforcers closed in on him. He was almost free, but now this escalating chaos made him pause and rethink his escape. The desperate robber worried about being cornered amidst the sprawling Ping family estate. The Blood Lion Corps captain, kneeling in defeat, likely reflects on the dire situation unfolding around them. Ignoring the danger, he prepared to boast about his own authority. The immediate threat was neutralized, but the sheer number of advancing forces meant only one thing remained. The confrontation escalates as Ping Qianwei arrives, his presence dominating the doorway, demanding immediate submission. The subordinate, now terrified, kneels before the Ping family elder, awaiting judgment. The Ping family elder's face contorted with outrage at the audacity of the fighting. The sheer force of the attack splattered its grim target onto the stone floor. The Ping family elder clenched his fist, the sound of his tension echoing the chaos outside. The captured warrior, realizing his desperate situation, grit his teeth in utter frustration. Ignoring the surrounding chaos, he silently steps into the echoing halls, pressing for answers. The initial wave of Ping family guards is swiftly dealt with. Despite the chaos, the Tiger Corps members firmly resolve to obey the command. A desperate cry echoes as the structure violently gives way under the crushing force. The ensuing chaos allows Namgung Ryong to carve a brutal path through his opposition. Despite the fatigue, Namgung Ryong pushed through, delivering a devastating, unexpected strike amidst the chaos. The masked figures surged forward, their swords glinting as another victim collapsed. The lone assailant realized the Ping family would soon know exactly who was causing this mess. Despite the overwhelming situation, the masked assailant launched a swift, deadly strike. With a crackle of energy, Namgung Ryong unleashes his power, striking the foe down immediately. With a sharp, focused glare, the younger brother reacted instantly to the sudden surge of power. The final desperate attackers were swiftly overwhelmed by an electric surge, silenced in their final moments. His frantic need to escape was momentarily overshadowed by the terrifying realization of his predicament. His brother's appearance brought a mix of relief and searing resentment. The clash of blades rings out as he parries the incoming strike with desperate resolve. The relief of his brother's arrival was instantly overshadowed by immediate concern for Hyuk's safety. The Namgung eldest's fighting prowess surprises his own men, growing sharper than ever. The attacker met a surprising, fierce defense, a blinding clash of steel against steel. The desperation of the fight culminated in a brutal, blood-soaked strike. The sudden realization of his brother's peril left him momentarily stunned, sweating under the pressure. Before the Ping guards could fully process the threat, the lone attacker was already closing the distance, drawing a sharp sound of impact. The ruthless assailant lands a devastating blow, eliciting a raw sound of pure terror. The ferocious assault connected, leaving the enemy choking out a sound of pained defeat. The brutal clash continued as Namgung Ryong's forces cut down anyone blocking their path. These loyal soldiers, part of the Thunder Dragon Corps, stood firm against the unexpected confrontation. The sheer power of the strike connected, eliciting only a grunt of agony and a spray of crimson. The arrival of the Thunder Dragon Corps forces a tense standoff, as the Ping family's own forces roar their refusal to yield. The outnumbered fighters realized their attackers were closing in, forcing a desperate confrontation. His desperate shout echoed, realizing the sheer danger of their current predicament. The Namgung Ryong's forces aggressively confront the Ping family guards. The Tiger Corps arrived, confirming the escalating conflict in Ping territory. Despite the frantic warnings, the figure bolted into the dark tunnel, desperate to escape the conflict. Even the eldest young master acts unreasonably now, just like his younger brother. The Ping forces, already furious at the intrusion, watched as the Namgung family's elite guards aggressively pushed past them. The enemy foot soldiers surged forward, only to be met by a devastating wave of force. Witnessing that impossibly fast strike, the guards realized the true madness of the situation. The sheer number of adversaries was overwhelming, making retreat the only viable option now. Sighing in frustration, this mercenary realized the risk of being caught was too high now. The Namgung forces stand defiant, their arrival signaling an unwanted escalation with the Ping family guards. His desperate plea hung in the air as the reinforcements finally arrived. The sudden, coordinated assault forces a grim grunt and a desperate scream of pain. Despite his worry, the elder young master was still fiercely engaged in the fight. The devastating attack connects, ending the foe's struggle with a sickening, audible gasp. The shadowy figure watches impassively as the other begins to move, a tense silence broken only by the sound of hurried steps. He recognized the overwhelming forces, knowing he couldn't linger any longer. The man, startled by the sudden confrontation, clutches his neck as the fighting escalates around him. Seeing his allies defeated, the young man could only utter a choked cry of disbelief. The chaos of the collapse forces a flicker of shock onto the stunned young master's face. The signal was given, and chaos erupted as the fleeing factions scattered. The captured man looks at his captor, the tension thick as he senses the true intent behind the sudden chaos. The chaos of the collapse barely registered as he clutched the fabric, his expression a mask of strained focus. With the signal given, the tactical retreat began amidst the chaos. The trap was sprung. The enemy's desperate strike met only mocking composure. The shockwave of the strike was immediate. Gungmak watched the ensuing violence unfold impassively. Trust earned, the brothers stand back to back, swords drawn, ready to face the coming onslaught. Gungmak's confidence held firm, a sly smile affirming his calculated risk had paid off spectacularly. He held firm, trusting his brother's desperate plan even as the chaos raged around them. The panicked fighters surged forward, their masked faces reflecting grim determination as they closed in for the kill. His allies trusted his signal, even as the ceiling began to shake violently. The signal was given. Now, Namgung Ryong stands ready as his allies flee the collapsing structure. The distraction worked. The enemy guards reels from the sudden, desperate attack. The chaos had subsided, leaving this warrior battered but still sitting amidst the ruins. The chaotic retreat finally allowed a moment for the young master Namgung Ryong to assess the overwhelming enemy forces. The enemy leader, visibly beaten, stares up at the confidently grinning Ryong, surrounded by armed guards. The Namgung forces recoiled, but one determined man remained, bloodied but unbroken. The signal was given. He unleashed a dazzling, crackling surge of power with his blade. The dust settled, revealing the bloody, defiant face of the surviving warrior under the harsh light. The cave crumbled, but Gungmak's structural integrity held fast against the chaos. With the signal given, Gungmak exhales sharply, unleashing a burst of crackling energy. The signal was given. It was time for desperate escape. The cave ceiling buckled violently under the immense force, unleashing a blinding discharge of energy. The cavern roof groans and crumbles as debris rains down on the terrified remnants. The collapsing cavern shook violently, leaving this warrior battered and screaming in disbelief. The earth itself reacted to the chaos, sending a deadly barrage of debris raining down. Trusting his brother's plan, Namgung Ryong plunged into the collapsing chaos amidst the falling debris. The shockwave passed, yet Gungmak remained miraculously untouched, protected by his sturdy preparations. The signal was given, a sudden, violent strike that cut through the air. With the signal given, Gungmak finally braces for the impact. The cavern shuddered violently as the ceiling began to collapse in a deafening rush. With the cave collapsing, the chaotic scramble for survival began amidst the groans of the breaking stone. The chaotic diversion was set, and now, their deadly clash began in earnest. The masked brute, a leader from the elite Blood Lion Corps, stepped forward, breathing heavily, ready for the final confrontation. The leader of the Blood Lion Corps, Cheong Bolguang, faced the collapse, his fury palpable. The cave ceiling shuddered violently as falling debris signaled the devastating collapse, leaving the remaining men frozen in stunned disbelief. His desperate plea was met with an unsettling, almost dismissive gesture, signaling the next move. The ground trembles violently as the enemy soldiers charge forward, driven by sheer desperation. The signal was given. The Tiger Corps must retreat now as the cave begins to collapse. The signal was given. The cave structure violently yielded under the immense pressure. The cave collapses around them, the sound of Gungmak's laughter echoing amid the chaos. The dust settles, revealing the catastrophic aftermath of the sudden tremor. A small group of surviving guards stares in stunned silence at the collapsed mountainside. The resulting devastation left them speechless, surveying the ruin where the clash ended. The chaos subsided just long enough for Namgung Ryong to offer a faint, knowing smile. The signal was given. Figures blurred as they bolted toward the trees. The elite Blood Lion Corps soldiers descend with overwhelming force, catching the remaining Namgung guards completely off guard. The formidable Blood Lion Corps of the Ping family has arrived, their faces grim under the shadow of conflict. Despite the chaos, the grim determination of the Blood Lion Corps leader was palpable. The commanding leader of the Blood Lion Corps demands an answer from the trapped Namgung Ryong. The leader of the Blood Lion Corps confronts Namgung Ryong, demanding an answer for the chaos. The frantic signal was given, and Gung Mok bolted for the exit as the cave began to collapse around them. The Blood Lion Corps leader confronted the still-standing Namgung Ryong, demanding an answer for the chaos. The Blood Lion Corps leader, Chiang Bolguang, glared, seething at the sheer audacity of their escape. The Blood Lion Corps leader's furious command rings out, demanding no survivors flee toward Jinhua Peak. The sudden structural collapse revealed the dark, dusty entrance, the sound effect echoing the intense upheaval. The cave entrance, momentarily illuminated, shows the wreckage of the mine carts following the intense collapse. The dust settled, revealing Gung Mok, alive and well, emerging from the rubble with an unnerving smile. The chaos above unearthed the treasure chest, popping it out just as hoped. The laughter echoed in the collapsing chamber, a manic sound confirming his victory. The cave stabilizes as Gung Mok's foresight pays off, revealing the chest's contents. He gripped the hilt, the sound of straining material echoing the tension of the moment. He endured the impact, proving his master's faith in his structural integrity. The final, crucial volumes tumbled into view, rich with the scent of ancient secrets. The collapse was a diversion. Gung Mok's foresight allowed them to escape the initial crush. Gung Mok had indeed set a trap. This heavy, ancient-looking box, secured with ornate metal corners, was now within reach. This intoxicating, pure fragrance confirms it. These are Gung Mok's legendary secret techniques. The sound of the cavern shifting was deafening, but Gung Mok just laughed, triumphant amid the chaos. With the promise fulfilled, the final secrets of alchemy were now in hand. The alchemist reviewed the final insights, a smug expression cementing his resolve to use them well. With the excess energy coursing through him, he turned his attention back to the final treasure. That sheer surge of power meant his internal energy had quintupled in strength. The newly acquired golden immortal pills shimmered brilliantly, a treasure trove of potential. Then first, should I try eating one? The initial shock of consuming the pill wears off, leaving him to contemplate the next step. The intense pressure of the overflowing energy was almost too much, but it presented a crucial opportunity. With his internal power stabilized, he quickly moved to retrieve the sword. The initial test felt overwhelmingly potent, a thrilling surge of energy in his ecstatic grasp. The overflowing, explosive energy resonated, forcing a painful, resounding cry from his very core. The raw energy felt fundamentally different now, compelling immediate introspection. The sudden, overwhelming surge of energy causes the user to cry out in an explosive release. The overflowing energy from the incomplete pill surged, causing a powerful resonance as he meditated. The chaotic energy surged, and with a deafening crackle, the unstable core began to fracture. The overwhelming surge of absorbed energy now compels the body to adapt. The remnants of the pill shattered violently, releasing a torrent of raw energy. The incomplete pill's energy violently erupted, shattering the barrier surrounding his blocked meridian. The chaotic energy stabilizes just long enough to confirm the initial breakthrough. The pill's immense power floods his core, finally overcoming his prior stagnation. The chaotic energy, contained within the pill's essence, violently bursts forth. The torrent of overflowing innate energy surges violently within him. The raw, overflowing energy from the pill felt incredible, pushing his very being past its limits. The core energy resonated wildly, forcing a stunned reaction from him. The overwhelming surge of energy forces a violent reaction, choking him mid-realization. The overflowing energy violently tears through him as he screams, achieving an unplanned breakthrough. The intense rush of energy forces a painful, straining reaction as he fights to contain it. The overflowing, wild energy violently pulsed outwards, causing a moment of sheer panic. The overwhelming, surging energy forces a primal scream of agony and exertion from him. The azure heaven bright king art surged, its power intensifying dramatically. The intense energy surge forces a raw, visceral reaction as he focuses on the opportunity. The surging, overabundant energy violently bursts outward, causing immediate, sharp pain. The overflowing energy rushes inward, a blinding, painful breakthrough erupting from within. The intense energy surges upward, an almost visible force ripping through the air above him. The surging power coalesced, manifesting as vibrant electrical discharge. The overwhelming power surged upward, enveloping him in crackling blue energy. The overwhelming energy surge sent him crashing back down, momentarily stunned by the chaos within. The surging energy pulsed violently, indicating a critical stage in his breakthrough. The immediate danger past, he breathes a sigh of exhaustion, the overwhelming surge finally subsiding. Dazed from the sheer surge of power, he finally succumbed to the overwhelming energy. The Namgung family patriarch stands sternly, his allies flanking him, demanding an answer. Their initial apprehension gives way to a hardened resolve as they stand ready for confrontation. The furious head of the Ping family demanded an immediate answer. The family head pressed, demanding an answer to their grave offense. The elder's anger was palpable, demanding an immediate answer. The sudden surge of energy alarmed the man, who turned sharply to see his companion react. The escalating tension of the interrogation left the guards visibly distressed by the young master's silence. The heavy silence was shattered as the warrior planted his weapon, demanding an answer from the massive figure before him. The newly empowered cultivator felt an overwhelming surge, a necessary consequence of his rapid breakthrough. The Bloodlion Corps leader issued his final, absolute command to secure the entire area. The family head silenced the commotion with a single, imperative command. Wait. The family head looked on, his expression cold and calculating, weighing the implications of the situation. The patriarch, seeing his subordinate's stubborn refusal, made a final, chilling decree. Ignoring the immediate threat, they focused solely on their desperate mission. The Bloodlion Corps leader waits for instruction, his expression hardening with grim determination. The Bloodlion Corps leader receives his orders, his stern face reflecting the gravity of the situation. The family head gave his stern order, determined to trap anyone attempting to flee. As the surge subsided, the young master lay exhausted, finally succumbing to the overwhelming energy. The energy surge subsided, leaving him regaining his senses amidst the chaotic aftermath. The immediate internal surge forces a painful reaction, yet he realizes this overload is his chance. The internal surge was almost too much, a delightful, overwhelming force. His overwhelming surge of newfound internal power manifested in a triumphant, ground-shattering landing. Despite the sharp impact, the immediate pain was overshadowed by manic delight. The overwhelming internal energy surge brings a wild, ecstatic grin to his face. That grin confirmed it. This newfound power surge, however overwhelming, was a welcome problem. The young master, finally safe, unleashes his powerful return with a triumphant, maniacal grin. Even the unexpected impact only brought a twisted, triumphant grin. Despite the danger, Namgung Ryong explodes back onto the scene with manic glee, his cape billowing dramatically. Despite the fatigue, he grinned, clutching the newly discovered wooden box tightly. Family head Ping, sensing his moment, asserted his dominance regarding the recovered treasures. Ping family head, however, stood his ground, unwilling to yield what was taken from his domain. Namgung Ryong, seeing the Ping family head arrive, felt a sharp moment of dread. The sheer arrogance startled him. The Namgung family's name seemed meaningless against this unyielding stance. His aggressive demands and utter refusal to wait visibly shocked the Namgung heir. The sheer intensity of the confrontation was causing a bizarre, almost ecstatic, reaction. The young master clutched his robes, a desperate tension in his grip. The oppressive, unnatural heat intensified, striking him like a physical blow. The recovered young master, though safe, immediately reverts to his arrogant self, demanding answers. Despite their relief, the diggers were immediately put back to work under Ryong's sharp glare. The tense standoff continued, every gesture charged with unspoken threat. The Namgung heir, revived but unchanged, belittles the effort expended on his rescue. The Ping family head, enraged, showed his unexpected strength while vigorously shoveling debris. Ping family head refused to yield, his tone hardening despite Namgung Ryong's attempts to placate him. The heavily scarred Ping family head stood firm, refusing to concede the discovered treasure. Family head Ping's aggressive insistence revealed just how vital those hidden items were to him. The enraged Namgung Ryong erupts from the rubble, his fury manifesting as a sharp, decisive strike against his own men. The relieved Thunder Dragon Corps member, seeing his young master alive, can only stare in stunned awe. He lunged forward, desperate to stop Namgung Ryong from leaving with the discovered treasures. Enraged by the perceived slackers, Namgung Ryong's terrifying roar echoed, demanding they vanish. The rescued Namgung Ryong stands before his men, his usual arrogance immediately returning. The exhausted diggers were interrupted by the thunderous approach of the newly arrived Namgung Ryong and his corps. The earth trembled again, drawing the horrified attention of the onlookers. The raw, crackling energy erupted from the ground with explosive sound effects. The sudden display of advanced technique left the observer reeling, questioning the impossible. The sheer force erupts, an intense surge of white and blue energy blasting outwards with violent impact. The intense confrontation exploded into a blinding column of crackling azure energy, forcing everyone to recoil in shock. The Namgung disciples recoiled, stunned by the unexpected confrontation escalating with family head Ping. The exasperated family head Ping, sweat beading on his brow, confronts the culprits. The powerful surge manifests, cracking with electric energy as the hidden technique unleashes its terrifying might. The shocking realization hit the Namgung head. This object was powerful enough to incite such aggressive territoriality. Struck dumb by the sudden, intense light, the rescuers could only stare upward. Emerging from the earth's confines, Namgung Ryong descended like a vengeful thunder dragon. The exhausted diggers finally see the young master emerging, seemingly unharmed but furious, under the downpour. The young master finally emerged, breathing a sigh of relief after surviving the ordeal. The Namgung young master, finally safe, greets his arriving subordinates with his usual arrogant smile. Despite the relief of survival, Namgung Ryong was clearly taken aback by the sudden confrontation. The reunion was overwhelmingly emotional, dissolving the tension in a fierce, relieved embrace. The young master's aggressive questioning left family head Ping reeling from the sheer audacity. The recovered young master faces the exhausted rescuers, his displeasure evident despite their relief. Namgung Ryong dismissed their fatigue with a menacing grin, asserting his authority despite their rescue efforts. The young master's arrogant smirk returned, unbothered by the escalating tension with family head Ping. The patriarch's aggressive demand cut through the tense air, his grip tightening in defiance. That outburst confirmed it. Family head Ping was surprisingly aggressive about the items found. Family head Ping reacts with shock as the young master unleashes a sudden, powerful strike against him. Despite his relief, the Namgung brute couldn't help but glare at the sheer exhaustion and pleading in his subordinates' eyes. Ping family had paused, scrutinizing the situation unfolding on his territory. Namgung Ryong, overjoyed at his survival, greets his men with typical, arrogant exuberance. Family head Ping's stern gaze met Namgung Ryong's arrogance head-on. Family head Ping leaned in, his composed expression masking a deep resolve concerning the unearthed treasures. Family head Ping's frustration boiled over, demanding an immediate accounting for the commotion on his land. The young master, returned and perhaps changed, faces off against family head Ping. The family head Ping's face hardened, completely ignoring Namgung Ryong's status. The revelation of what lies within the cave tightens family head Ping's expression into a grim realization. The gaping maw of the collapsed earth stood before them, a stark testament to the chaos that had just unfolded. Ping family head's dismissive chuckle hung heavy in the air, escalating the tension. The heavy iron gate stood, sealing whatever secrets lay beyond. His menacing smile confirmed that his possessiveness outweighed any political concern. This little brat, it doesn't matter. The leader of the Ping family crew stepped forward, his men brandishing swords, ready for confrontation. The family head Ping stepped forward, his smile grim as he asserted ownership over the unearthed treasures. This little brat, Ping family head's eyes narrowed, unfazed by Namgung Ryong's presence. The family head Ping steps forward, his eyes narrowed with barely concealed fury. This little brat. It doesn't matter. Stunned by the sheer audacity, one of the Namgung contingent stammered in disbelief. The Namgung heir met the family head's stern gaze, echoing the accusation of being overly forceful. Despite his earlier restraint, the man's true contempt for the opponent leaks out. Brat. He held firm, eyes narrowed, daring the opponent to challenge his resolve. The aggressive tone of the Namgung representative only fueled the suspicion in Ping's eyes. The family head's aggressive stance only deepens the young master's suspicion. Despite the heated exchange, the sudden, tense silence hung heavy as both sides drew their weapons. His aggressive posture and drawn blades confirmed the utter breakdown of diplomacy. The confrontation escalated as the Namgung heir snatched back the incriminating object. His eyes, sharp and unyielding, confirmed his unwavering resolve against the pressure. The elder's expression hardened, sensing the sheer aggression radiating from the younger generation. His face hardened, the elder from the Namgung family showing his true displeasure at the escalating confrontation. The tension crackled as both factions stood ready, swords drawn, the confrontation escalating into a deadly standoff. His grimace tightened. Even the subordinate recognized the rising tension. The Namgling's second son confirmed his word as the family's will, cementing the challenge. He forcefully held back his frantic subordinate, his own rising panic evident. The opponent's slick proposal for a public duel immediately put the elder on guard. The opposition's smooth words struck a chord. This cunning man was clearly analyzing the situation. The man's frustration peaked. The taunts about their supposed clumsiness only fueled his rage. The young master of Namgling, cornered by the outrageous wagerer, could only offer a look of stunned disbelief. The aggressive posturing escalates as the Namgling delegate draws a blade, ready to fight. The Namgling delegation's guards finally snapped, their fury boiling over into drawn steel. The Namgling elder stared down, his words chillingly incomplete, forcing a reaction. The Ping faction bristled, unwilling to simply concede their territory and risk losing access to the mysterious cave. The young master considered his next move, a sly smile betraying his intent to further test the enraged delegation. The young master, unfazed by the threat of violence, presented his proposal with a gesture that seemed almost casual. The tension breaks as the Namgling representative draws his blade, ready to fight. The warrior, enraged by the challenge, lunges forward, sword drawn in a furious attack. As the volatile situation threatened to erupt, the elder stepped in, commanding a sudden halt. The implication of a duel hung heavy, shocking the other side into stunned silence. The younger man, flustered by the sudden escalation, could only gape at the resolute elder. His face hardened, an expression of absolute, dangerous certainty settling upon him. With the agreement reached, Ping now focuses on the stakes of the proposed duel. The sheer audacity of their proposal left the Namgling contingent momentarily stunned, sweat beading on their brows. The Namgling's second son stood firm, challenging the established authority with his bold declaration. The sly one presses the issue, forcing his opponent to confirm their previous declarations. The Namgling family's delegate looked perturbed, while his subordinate urged action. The confrontation explodes as the green-clad warrior descends with savage intent, meeting the protagonist's readiness. The suggestion to bet the cave rights hung heavy in the tense air. The Namgling's second son confidently seals the deal, confirming the agreement before everyone. The Namgling heir stood shocked, witnessing the elder's brazen maneuvering. The Namgling's second son accepted the terms, but suspicion lingered about their true goals. The challenger reiterated his contempt, setting the seemingly impossible condition. 10 seconds. The manipulative elder pressed his point, emphasizing a single, critical condition for their upcoming confrontation. He dismissively flaunted the proposal, as if weighing their insignificant offers. The Ping family representative pointed an accusing finger, his words leaving the Namgling attendants utterly bewildered. Seeing their intent to fight, The Namgling delegation raised their weapons, ready to clash. His cold, calculating gaze lingered, demanding an answer to his audacious wager. The guards braced, their frustration boiling over into raw hostility as they brandished their blades. The Blood Lion Corps and Tiger Corps displayed their intimidating readiness, sparking panic among the subordinates. The Namgling second son, realizing the depth of the situation, could only stare blankly into the darkening woods. The challenger, having secured a promise of fair terms, now boldly proposes a wager for the cave's rights. The slime manipulator laid out his terms, his smile wide and disarming. The black-clothed figure's presence wasn't mere coincidence. The stakes were now terrifyingly clear. The air hung heavy around the dark, rocky depression, the mysterious pool of black liquid beckoning answers. Hyuk's taunt hung in the air, a mocking challenge met by the stern gaze of the elder. With a smug expression and a pointed finger, he declared his confidence. The Namgling contingent recoiled, stunned by the audacity of the threat they had just provoked. His smug proposition cut through the tension, laying bare his true intentions. Even as his subordinates pleaded, the elder could only remain silent, processing the sheer audacity of the situation. The weight of Ping's desperation and the secrecy of that cave left the young master utterly stunned. The sly fox had laid his trap, and now he smiled, waiting for the inevitable acceptance. The Namgling representative stood tall, challenging the sudden shift in tone with unblinking confidence. The Ping family elder sputtered, bewildered by the audacity of the young master's challenge. The elders stared in stunned silence, their confidence shattered by the young master's impossible knowledge. The opponent smirked, enjoying the leverage gained from the Namgling second son's previous bold claims. The Namgling representative trembled, struggling to process the sheer audacity of the proposition. The patriarch's intimidating presence silenced the nervous subordinate, whose desperate plea hung in the air. The insult stings, but Ryong forces a smile as the elder patronizingly pats his head. The arrogant youth smirked, pleased with the escalating tension and the bait he'd successfully set. The elder's icy gaze pinned the subordinate, demanding an answer to his audacious claims. Despite his arrogance, a quick, sharp tap brings a momentary reaction. The spy, realizing his surveillance was spotted, now confronts the tense situation with wide-eyed apprehension. Even as they searched him, they couldn't shake a growing sense of unease about the situation. The opponent's shock only confirmed the effectiveness of his cunning ploy. The older man's barely concealed rage met the younger man's apprehension. Their uneasy alliance was clearly fracturing. The inspection complete, the contents of the chest remained hidden, adding to the lingering unease. The overseer remained skeptical of the exhausted martial artist's late-night training efforts. The tension breaks as the exchange is finally complete, leaving the opponents face to face. Even after observing their exhausting night training, their efforts felt like empty bravado to him. He smirked, dismissing any further argument about searching his person. The surveillance ends. The Ping family leaders fear being caught spying. The elder's stern gaze revealed deep-seated doubt, contrasting sharply with his arrogant pronouncements. The dragon's spirit coalesces, a terrifying manifestation of power descending upon the coiled serpent. The subordinate, feeling the weight of their master's command, could only respond with rising panic. The Ping family members continued to express their frustration and disbelief over the inspection. A grim, knowing smirk crosses the elder's face, his quiet confidence unnerving after the previous pronouncements. The initial advantage was clearly his, following his carefully laid intentions. He smirked, confirming his self-assured dominance over the situation. He reaffirms his belief. Too much cautious thought invites fatal error in battle. Their smug confidence wavered as the younger man protested his innocence regarding any hidden items. He chuckled, relishing the momentary victory of their facade holding firm. While the guards feigned exhaustion from their supposed overnight training, the true Blood Lion Corps members strained under the mundane labor. Despite the forced inspection, the water still flowed, signifying the slow, inevitable conclusion of their humiliating concession. The exhausted disciples hauled their heavy burdens through the darkness, utterly spent. The two guards eagerly revealed the contents. confirming their successful deception. The successful search provided a moment of relief and smug satisfaction as they enjoyed the steam. The guards moved quickly, one drawing his weapon while the other began roughly stripping the clothing off the subject. The commander, witnessing their exhaustion, decides to stop the futile surveillance of the exhausted trainees. The master paused, his sharp eyes assessing the situation before revealing his next calculated move. Despite the tension, the protagonist luxuriates in his bath, while his escort watches with guarded suspicion. Despite his earlier bluster, the Ping heir's anxiety was clear, realizing the danger they were in. With the immediate threat averted and the inspection complete, the night settles over the compound. Despite the earlier exhaustion, the mocking commander still held an air of smug confidence, watching his defeated pupils. The sheer audacity of the young master's cunning left the subordinate completely stunned. His arrogance peaks as he dismisses the notion of defeat against the Ping family's forces. The guards shifted uncomfortably, awaiting the next command from their superior. The shocked retainer demanded an explanation, completely flustered by the young master's audacity. The younger man forcefully confronts the superior, continuing his calculated verbal assault. The physical search continues, met with immediate, furious denial. The enforcer's bluster falters as the enraged superior looms over the trembling subordinates, his face contorted with fury. The man's simmering frustration finally boiled over. Their intense, flame-wreathed expressions betray the sheer agony of this forced, relentless exertion. As the training began, the air filled with the swift, sharp sounds of clashing steel. The overwhelming exhaustion pushed the subordinate to his breaking point, forcing a near collapse. The exhausted cadet could only gasp, realizing the relentless intensity of the required training. He scoffed, satisfied that his gambit to avoid a body search had been successful. The surveillance ends. After all, they shouldn't risk complaints about spying on training. The sudden, unseen strike sends debris scattering against the building's wooden frame. He paused, hand touching his chin, still processing the audacity of his opponent. The surveillance was halted, as boasting about superior skill felt pointless when they might later protest being spied upon. The Ping family leader pressed his point, using the sheer power of his military might as irrefutable proof. A cold, amused chuckle escaped him as he watched the enemy struggle with the rules. The Ping family elder took a slow sip, his eyes narrowed with intense suspicion and calculation. The scheming young master continued to press his case, basking in the other's discomfort over the necessary body search. The Ping family elder remains utterly dismissive of the rumored threat. The Ping family elder calmly sipped his drink, his shrewd gaze never leaving the nervous subordinate. His arrogance remained defined, even as his subordinate looked on with shadowy suspicion. The elder finally lets out a self-satisfied chuckle, enjoying the thought of his opponents being utterly duped. The intense standoff concluded, replaced by the mundane yet revealing act of setting down the teacup. The stern elder leaned back, asserting his dominance over the petitioner below him. The moment of confrontation arrived, a sharp clash as blades met under the night sky. The brutal training session concluded, leaving the exhausted soldiers utterly spent. The exhausted trainee could only moan, utterly spent from the relentless, unfair demands. He barely contained his indignation after the body search confirmed his rivals carried nothing illicit. The guards, having confirmed nothing suspicious was hidden, felt a moment of uneasy relief after the humiliating inspection. The other guards watched their comrades submit, their own expressions a mix of confusion and grim agreement. The spy, having witnessed the rigorous training, felt a profound sense of inadequacy and despair. The relentless training continued to break down the exhausted trainees. The sheer force of the confrontation left one man frozen in terror beneath the other's intense glare.